Good evening, and welcome to the June 8th meeting of the Historic District Commission. Before we get started, I'll make a few introductions. Dan Brown.
Hello.
And Martin Ryan.
Good evening.
And Reagan Rudy.
Good evening.
And I'm John Wyckoff. We have Nick.
Good evening.
Yes, and Rich Blaylock.
Good evening.
And Margot Doring.
Hello.
David Adams is out with health issues, his knee, and we also have our alternate, Karen Buffard, will be here and voting soon. So, the board's actions in these matters have been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point or it will be deemed waived. So we go into administrative approvals. We have a couple postponements we might as well get out of the way. Request to postpone a petition of 531 Islington Street, Portsmouth, property located at 531, wherein permission is requested to allow renovations to an existing structure. As per plans on file in the planning department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 157 in Lot 5 and lies within Character District 4-L2 in the Historic District. And also Old Business B, petition of Sheaf Street Condominium Association, Smith Family Declaration of Trust, Todd C. Smith, trustee, applicant. Property located at 159 State Street, Unit -3A, wherein permission is requested to allow the installation of mechanical equipment as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 107 as Lot 56-303A, lies within Character District 4 and Historic District. Would somebody make this motion?
I move we postpone A and B.
Okay.
To next month? It has to be next month.
Yes,
at
next
least.
month.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All righty. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So now we'll move back to administrative approvals.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this part of the hearing.
Okay. All right. You have to sit down in the bleachers.
I also have to recuse from 35 Pleasant Street.
So we just have enough. 4.
Okay.
Nail biter.
We could do 35 Pleasant Street
Let's just do that, right? With the 4 we've got.
with all of us that we've got.
Yep.
4, yep.
And then with the
You gonna
4,
stay
and then you could, so you might want to sit down also and then come back. Thank you. Thank you for making the extra effort too.
Okay. 35 Pleasant?
Yeah.
This is for a proposal to install mechanical equipment in the form of a mechanical screen and an exhaust tower on a single-story rear addition that's already there behind the building at 43 Pleasant. There are a number of images in the application. There's also a floor plan that was submitted today to make it a little clearer what's going on top of that single-story roof. So you each have a hard copy of that on your desk. It's also on the screen. It shows the existing equipment as well as the exhaust tower that's 12 feet tall that's being added, and the 42-inch safety rail that's required with a mesh screen as detailed on that handout to go and be applied along that handrail. I don't know what else to tell you. The images that are in the application make it clear where it is. Here it is looking back from the drive-through on the abutting bank. This is State Street over here. So this is the proposed screen. There's the exhaust tower. That's essentially the application. Any?
Okay, would we like to make some comments or would somebody have a motion?
I think it's fine. It's screening equipment, which is always encouraged. So I'm fine to move that we approve this as presented unless anybody else has anything to say.
Yep.
Second.
I would say also this is something we might want to remember, this screening material that attaches to these standard size fences that people are now required to put around their equipment. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Yes? All right.
Okay.
Let's wait for Margot to come back.
Oh, You're welcome.
Oh, no problem.
Yep. We'll get you next time, Eli. 50 Newcastle Ave.
Congratulations. New statey.
Yeah, the applicant for 50 Newcastle Ave is simply looking to add a rear shed to this project that was previously approved. I don't know where they are in the construction process from that previous approval, but most of you saw this in the last 2 years. Amy Dutton was the architect of record. So it's just, sorry for everyone else, I'll get it on the screen. It's a pretty simple, oops, I just needed to scroll. Here we go. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces, a lot of images here to the last one, so hang on.
There's an awful lot.
Yeah, that page seems to be in there 5 times. I didn't scan it.
Okay.
Oh, geez, what's that?
I remember this, though. Oops.
Yeah, sorry. Eli was very thorough. Okay, so there's the shed here. There's the location of the shed, well behind the principal structure here. Obviously, details matter. You can see everything that's detailed on that sheet, all 4 elevations. Yeah.
Nick, do you know, are they planning to use vinyl siding as stated in the specifications?
Yeah, where are you actually seeing in the floor?
In the-
Left side view,
Structure details?
structure
I'm going to
details,
zoom in on that
siding,
too.
vinyl.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would assume that's what they're asking for, and I think that's worth asking whether that's appropriate. Yeah, right here. Included.
Okay, so is it the feeling of the board that we remove the vinyl siding on the shed,
It also doesn't say what,
make it wood?
it doesn't say what the windows are made of either.
Well, they're probably vinyl.
Probably little shed window.
They're probably vinyl windows.
Yeah,
If it's
I'm-
vinyl sided.
I'm less concerned about the windows because it is far away, and the only way that you'll see this shed is when you're on the little path that goes from the road into Little Harbor
fine.
School. But
We don't have to remove the vinyl, but
I'm,
it's on our,
it would be nice
Guidelines.
for them to actually have wood siding as stated in our
Okay.
guidelines.
Yep.
yeah, how do you feel?
If we just change the wood, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
I would agree with that.
so we'll make that a
Stipulate.
stipulation.
Okay, you want to, someone make a motion?
Sure, I move that we approve this application with the stipulation that the siding be wood clapboards rather than vinyl.
All righty. Any second?
Second? Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
We postponed
those
old
two.
business A and B.
So we're on 90 Fleet.
We're up to
It's
C.
very, very visible.
Petition of Helen Marks, owner for property located at 90 Fleet Street, Unit D, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure, replacement windows. As per plans, on file in the planning department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 117 as Lot 41D, lies within the Character District 5, Downtown Overlay and Historic Districts. Who here is to speak for this?
Helen Marks. How are you?
Okay, thanks.
You should introduce yourself again,
Yes, I am Helen Marks.
and thank you very much, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
yes, we're good.
I was here last week and you needed the measurements of the windows, and so they were resent, and supposedly you have them now.
Yep.
Do.
And I guess I have a question or comment on them. I see this style here, I'm not quite sure which one is going where, but regardless, the windows that are there that are above fat face, so you've got sort of the 4,
We have 5.
right, but
Yeah.
the ones that are above the front corner one have 4 panes.
Yeah, I think so.
And I realize some of the others are not, have just 2. I don't know if it would be possible, rather than to have this type of configuration where you have the lower fixed piece of glass if the whole thing could move back and forth so that you don't have so many different types
Three
of
panes,
windows.
yeah.
Yeah.
The reason for that is for safety reasons, because the windows go from ceiling to floor. So
Okay.
we don't want it to slide open, someone could fall right out.
Well-
You understand? So it has to have some border in the middle.
Okay, I assume that that's code
Yes.
code issues too.
Yeah, it would be,
Very good.
yeah.
Okay.
And I rather wanted to put the sliders because they're not as costly as the other ones, and there's so much going on the bottom ones, but whichever one you would,
Oh, so this is sort of
Two
either-
there are
options.
two different
There are two different
windows. I'm only
options,
gonna,
okay.
yeah, there are two options, yes.
The
Well,
bottom
they're all
ones
gonna
are
be the
casement
s-
windows, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
All three will be the same. I'm not going to put different windows. They're all three windows that are being replaced will all look the same, either the top ones or the bottom ones, whichever one
Okay.
you guys approve.
Martin's gonna.
Martin, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You know, if you did want that full sliding effect, you could put a bar that at the same height as the bar you see here, and this way you don't have to have the three windows.
You mean
You'd
just
have the safety effect of
a
the.
separate bar on the inside, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be probably more than a bar, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm not
It
sure.
would
if
be
that-
bar with
Yeah, it would be rails.
vertical supports on the bar.
If you had,
That's a pretty big gap under that bar, right, if it's that low?
Maybe it involves multiple
yeah,
bars.
yeah.
Yeah, but you could do that.
you could, yeah. I mean, I don't need to bring this up, but I do have a nephew that fell out of a window like this. And it was a bad thing. They paid a lot of money, I'll tell you that. It was in Los Angeles.
God forbid, we don't want any of that, so
No.
No, we don't want that.
it's a terrible thing.
But there are ways of having the window as you want it,
Yeah.
still have a safety factor. And so, yeah, that could be done.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else have some opinions on this side over here? In the deep left
No, I agree with what I've heard.
field.
So,
And Margot?
No comment.
No, I mean, I would think that it would be preferable to keep the same window sizes if you wanted to. I don't know if you've thought about putting an interior guard or bar in there.
It really wouldn't look too nice to put that. I just feel it's so much safer like that. I would
Okay.
hate for anything to happen to anyone. It just feels, the glass is going to be the tempered glass that it needs, and the bar will keep it really safe.
Yeah.
And it's kind of important to me.
Okay.
So I'm not going to make that a stipulation then, and
which of the two?
Yeah, which, are people in agreement for the first one, the top? The slider?
Just ask one clarifying question. The lower panel, you're going to have that completely clear glass. You're not thinking about having a frosted glass or anything like
No,
that?
just clear.
yeah, do we have consensus on the first, the higher one or the lower one?
Which one do you prefer? Your window?
The slider one on top.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I prefer.
Yeah.
Okay, I would agree. Yeah, I would agree.
Now I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this proposal? Yes?
Paige Trace, 27 Hancock Street. This appears to me to be an obvious win-win for this lady. This is a perfectly lovely design-wise window, and it solves a major problem with all of the issues that you brought forward. So I, as one resident in this city, would say this is a great thing. Let her have her window. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else, please? Okay, I'm going to close this public hearing and ask for a motion. I would suppose we could mention the sliding
Yes,
option.
yes, so the stipulation. I'll move that we approve this application with the stipulation that the first option with the sliding windows rather than the casements be used.
Second?
This, this complements and enhances the architectural and historic character. It's not out of character for this building. This is still clearly a storefront type window. And has compatibility of design with surrounding properties.
All righty. So, all those in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Against? You have your approval.
Thank you. Could I ask one more question?
Yes?
How long is the approval good for? Like, how long of a period of time?
1 year.
1 year? Okay,
And
thank
you
you
can
very
get a
much.
1-year extension if you come back
But you
before
have
the
to
year
come back.
expires.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Okay, thank you all very much.
You're welcome. Okay, moving right along, or attempting to. Can't even get the paper. There we go. Petition of National Society of Colonial Dames, owners for property located at 0 Market Street and 55 Ceres Street, the Orr House, wherein permission is requested to allow renovations to an existing structure, replace the existing fencing, as per plans on file in the Planning Department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 118 as Lot 5, lies within Character District 4, Downtown Overlay Civic and Historic District. And who is here to give this presentation?
There she is.
Thank you. Carla Goodnight from CJ Architects. You are moving quickly. Thank you very much. This is a sort of a follow-up application to a prior approval for the 55 Ceres Street project. There was a stipulation for replacement of the existing fence, and all other items presented on this application were previously approved at the February 9th meeting. And what we did was we met out there on site on a beautiful day as a group and measured the height of the fence and the length of the fence and determined the extent of the fence that was most desirable for not obstructing the view, but obstructing the mechanical equipment. And what we had arrived at was, as you can see, 1.1, 1.2, showing existing conditions and the view areas. When you get to 1.3, we have arrived at a mahogany fence that would be installed along the front to replace the fence that's there. You can see it in plan on detail 3 of 1.3, and we have some pretty specific details about the way the pickets are as designed in the authentic details for fences by Peter Harrison, and then down the side as well, and the distance that we have there. And the intention is to just allow the fence to weather naturally, because the star of the show obviously is the view. So we're just going to put that up as a screen, and it has some translucency, as did the prior fence. So that's that's our follow-up to the previous approval.
Great. Questions? Yes.
This has all been approved by the Dames as well. They're
Yes.
on board, like you said.
Yes, they had a board meeting, and they voted that this was acceptable, and I believe 2 members of the Dames were in attendance at our determination meeting,
Yep, excellent.
or investigative meeting.
Okay. Anyone on this side?
Just for the sake of record, what's the on-center for the pickets? Are they every,
The space is the same as the width of the picket, so it'll be a void and a solid. So
Okay.
it'll
1 to
be
1.
inch and a
and
picket.
the frame behind it, pressure treated or regular?
mahogany.
Okay. Very
Mahogany
nice.
also, yes.
Very nice.
All righty. Any other questions or comments?
No, I'm glad that everybody was able to come together and come to a design for this, because the poor fence that is existing now is not very attractive. So this would be a much better option. Thank you.
And it's
We're
also
lucky.
good that this is an authentic detail from Mr. Harrison's book, which I will make an attempt to get a copy of.
It's not that easy.
So that's it for us. Anybody in the public would like to speak?
Page Trace, 27 Hancock Street. I'll wear a different hat tonight. I am the president of the New Hampshire Society for the Colonial Dames of America. And I met with Carla Goodnight. We approve this fence as designed. We've done a simple change to the top of the picket. And otherwise, height-wise, it stays the same. It will not be attached to 135 Market. It will be attached to our roof. So that is another part of this. And we also agree, you will all be pleased to know that we agree with the fence headed down on the side of the building between Market and Ceres Street, somewhere between 14 to 18 feet. And I think that's the best solution for all for this. And that current fence is actually an historic design, as rough and ugly as it is. It's simply that the material that it was made out of 30 or 40 years ago is disgusting, pressure-treated pine.
I was only commenting on the
Yeah, no,
condition
you're
of the
absolutely
fence.
correct.
The
You're
condition of the
absolutely
fence.
correct, and I'm sorry. I apologize. Due to certain situations, I couldn't speak at the last several meetings, and I hope you understand. But now I can, and I'm here, and I approve it. Thank you.
Thanks.
All righty. Anybody else in the public like to speak about this? Yes, please, come on up.
Good evening, council members and Page Trace. My name is Kathleen Tutone. I own Treehouse Toys, which is located right next to that fence, and I think it's going to be lovely.
Oh,
great.
It's much appreciated after enduring that kind of rickety old fence that's before there. So thank you all very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And just to comment on my end, that whole area is now looking so beautiful with all the flowers, and it was sort of getting a little run down after a few years, but now it's just amazingly beautiful. Okay.
John, I'm sorry, could I have a follow-up
yes,
question?
Martha.
Because Paige said the fence would be between 14 and 18 feet. Is it not decided?
It's 18 on here.
It's 18 on
18.
here, okay.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Oh.
I didn't actually look at the final distance on the final, but I trust Carla and the architects working for Carla, and we did it by actually standing there and deciding whether you could do it, how far you could do it without disturbing the view shed of the river.
Yeah,
Sorry, long day,
it's the
multiple
best way to
meetings.
do it.
Yes.
All righty, I'm going to close this public hearing then, and look for a motion.
Motion to, I'm sorry,
Go for it.
motion to approve as presented?
I'll second.
All right,
The
give some,
Any facts?
something.
preserves the integrity of the district and is compatible with the design of surrounding properties.
All righty. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody against? And you have your approval. Don't let that thing fall down. Replace it. That's what it looks like it's going to do.
Work session.
Work sessions. So I believe we're going down to the table for a long and comfortable evening. Save this one up here. Greetings and salutations. Yeah, I just want to say that I'd like to keep it to a half an hour. I'd like to keep all of these to half an hour because we've got 6 of these
Well,
things.
you are the chairman, so
I'm the chairman.
you can make that happen.
I might give you another minute for that. 31 minutes. Let's just get set up here. Ah, Nick does everything. Okay, let's go ahead.
I think you have to
Yeah, read this.
Son of a gun,
say
I
your
do.
piece.
Sick of reading these.
Don't let it cut into a half hour.
I know it, yeah. Let's see, work session requested by 1 Rains Avenue LLC, 31 Rains Avenue LLC, and 203 Maplewood Avenue LLC, owners for property located at 1 Rains Avenue 31. It would be easier if you just had one address.
I don't think we're allowed to do that till after.
Wherein permission is requested to allow the construction of 4 to 5-story mixed-use building and a 5-story hotel as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 123, Lot 14, Map 123, Lot 13, Map 123, Lot 12, lies within Character District 4 and Historic Districts. So please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Carla Goodnight and Jake Weeder from CJ Architects and
Evan Tormey representing the owner.
So what we prepared here for you this evening is updates on the areas that you had asked us to concentrate on, as well as we've begun introducing some of the details, because I know there were some concerns about exactly what are the details that we're seeing in the SketchUp and the rendering models. And we've also put the buildings together, so we're looking at them as a single unit. One of the changes from last time is that this building along Maplewood Avenue actually got a slightly narrowing, which I think is helpful for giving it an offsetting the mass and creating a better proportion facing Maplewood with that little setback area. So that got narrowed up. And we also are showing the rooftop equipment from this bird's eye view, which you would not see. We wanted you to, we used this view so you could see it.
Which page you
Where
want?
are you?
I'm sorry, 2.1.
Yeah,
I'm not stating my
you're
pages.
good at that normally.
I know.
She's tired.
Yeah.
I know. So 2.1, we've expanded the glazed canopy area, and then we've also consolidated the entrances so there's a little more variety, and decided that the spaces were better served by a smaller canopy and then a central entrance, based on the uses that are going on back there. This is going to be much more supportive of those uses, and I think it looks simpler and more unified that way, and a little bit of variety. So that's been introduced, and then, like I said, we tipped the building up so you could see the rooftop equipment, and our intention is to screen that mostly from view by just having it centered on the roof.
So also that center, the wider canopy is glass.
Center, yes, yes.
Yeah, so that's the primary residential entrance, and so sort of celebrating that entrance. And then there are 2 entrances to the sort of commercial retail space, but really one primary, one secondary. So we've emphasized the primary with the canopy, and then the secondary egress is just sort of doors more in plane with the rest of the facade.
Okay.
Hierarchy, better hierarchy. They were all kind of similar before, so. The glazed entry canopy is highlighted in an inset detail, more top-down on 2.1. If you go to 2.2, we can see also the removal of that recessed entry has helped glaze that corner a little more efficiently on the end abutting the hotel. You can see or actually you can't see the rooftop equipment from this vantage point, just based on the angle and the setback. Moving on to 2.3, the introduction of this textured element in the center, I think, is what we've been searching for, because we've tried glazing, we've tried a bunch of different options and pulling in the white and so forth, but I think introducing a finer texture was very helpful to create that, differentiate the entrance areas with that different material, so.
And I don't think we called it out on here, but the window configuration was also changed in response to the comments from the last meeting.
Right, we've done away with the T-shape window here and gone for something a little more simple and clean lines, because we've introduced another texture that's kind of, a little more energy, so we're trying to simplify the window lines to
Is that
complement that.
diamond-shaped metal accent siding, is that called out somewhere?
There's an example of it on the lower right in an inset, but it's also on the materials page, I don't think it is yet on the materials page. It's just a photograph is called out down here of,
It's a little odd on that building.
well, that building has some interesting lines. But we'll be
Couldn't find a better
using,
example for
we're using a different color and a nice rectilinear shape, so.
We felt that image sort of represented the texture of the material, obviously not applied in that manner to that type of building, but I think
So
it's
we
got some
have
nice
that.
depth.
We do
Right.
have that on Port Rock Place, on one of the building chunks there that are meant to.
Is it metal?
differentiate. Yeah, it's metal.
It is metal, okay.
It's orange.
It's what's basically being put on the new Dana Street building as well. Or that's copper.
Copper, yeah.
Yep.
Is this copper?
Titanium.
Is it titanium? What is it made of? Aluminum.
What is
Aluminum.
it? Yes. I think it's an aluminum.
It's
This one's an
vinyl.
aluminum product,
Yeah,
yes.
we've got something from Harvey here.
No,
Actually, they're not in business, it's a different name now.
they are.
Okay, I'm sorry, keep going.
We also added signage to just give an idea of how that would be handled and sort of add to the building.
And then we're showing the canopies. We had shown sort of two options last time.
Oh, right,
So
yes.
Made those
We've
more consistent.
reconciled the two options of canopies to be one option as well. And then looking at 2.4, you can see the entrance next to the garage a little more readily here with a little canopy. We've removed the obstructionary tree that was there. And you can see the railing off to the right for where we've introduced that balcony on the top floor. And the simplified window patterns, I think, are really helpful here as well. So,
Is the back of 3S really that bad?
that is the city model, Nick.
Okay. So
That's the
hopefully it's not
JPEG.
like
I'll
that.
send you another one if you
Needs a
like.
mural if that's what it looks like.
I know that Beth has been pushing for a mural for some time.
Jess?
It's a canvas right there.
Yes.
Is that, this has nothing to do with this, I suppose, but is that balcony, is that for the whole hotel? Or is that just for the rooms?
So right now, the way we're looking at it is there would be a portion of balcony that would be dedicated to a suite on that floor, but then also a portion of the balcony that would be available as sort of a space for like other guests within the hotel, potentially as rented space for a small gathering.
Which you get a little bit better look at on 2.5 when we zoom in. You can see we've introduced some metal panel details, a corrugated detail in the base of the building on the right side of the garage opening, which I think adds again a nice contrast to what's happening there. and then the rooftop terrace, and on 2.6,
Is this just standard parking underneath here, or is this
yes.
elevated?
No,
Standard parking.
Standard grade parking, yes. Mhm. And 2.6 illustrates again that stair tower that we developed last time. And you can see some openings onto that rooftop terrace there on the hotel. And then the mixed-use building, again, I think you can notice it here, that front area on Maplewood has been pushed back quite a bit, which offsets that from the main volume to the left.
Steps down slightly as well.
Oh, yes, yeah. View across the water.
It's on 2.6, is that another garage door opening? It's on the extreme left, I can see you have that panel.
On the extreme
Corrugated
left, that
paneling,
is
and then
the,
there's an opening. What's
right,
that?
that's the shadow of the tree falling on the slatted fence.
Oh.
But you do pull in there, right, to park
Yes.
in those cars, yeah. If you
On the
look
other
at
side of the elevator tower, not the stair tower, right?
Right,
Not on the
that's-
back side, on the side. Don't you go-
Yes, it's a drive-through,
It's not a
Okay.
L.
right, but I thought you were talking about the tree shadow, but you
Possible
can
to
see
get
it on,
down.
in the 3.0 section, you'll be able to get a better indication. On 3.0, in plan.
We'll get there.
Okay. And then what we've done is to give you the dimensioned elevations, to sort of, we've been looking at all of this in 3D, so I want to try to provide the opportunity to, represent the dimensions that we're intending and begin looking at this in its actual dimension drawings. So this series 3.0, 3.1, and 3.2, actually the entire 3 series is just here as record dimensions for the floor to floors and the building height to the top of the roof.
It's amazing that you could pull this off and make it all 59 foot 9 inches.
Well, it's from the average grade plane,
Yeah.
that's why. So, and then 3.5 shows the window dimensions. So we have that cottage style with the lintel and sill.
Is this, does it have an awning bottom? How is it functional?
It's, right now, it's a double hung.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
It's a double hung. Because this is the residential. Right. And then 3.6 is showing the, some of the details on the upper cornice with the banding and the pre-finished trim and the clapboard siding. And then also the brick cornice with the stone frieze and the brick veneer, so, and the precast banding. So that is the intention of the cornice. And then again, the smaller cornice. This is the smaller
Cornice
version.
Insulated, Carla, I'm just making, really, why?
No, is it?
Is it? Look at it right there. Looks like insulation, doesn't it? Never mind.
So,
Well, it's got squiggly lines. That usually indicates insulation.
yes, yes.
Okay, where are you now?
311, right?
We're on 3.7. We're talking about the different types of banding and the banding spacing that you've seen on the elevations. 3.8 shows the balcony detail, and then the lintel at the balcony. So you can see that in the elevations and in the model, showing the aluminum rail with the nice sort of round guard, and the
3.8?
yep, 3.8.
Okay.
The deep pre-finished aluminum panel to give you that C-shaped metal piece at the finished edge of the balcony. And then 3.9, again, just bringing into focus some of these metal and stone trim details and how that actually is going to play out on the building. And then some treatments on window installation, head jamb and sill. And then we have the series of hotel elevations, which 3.11, you can see the signage and the different treatments for elevation materials. 3.12, we don't have these keyed exactly to the elevations yet, but we'll have that obviously in the final. We just want to give you a overview. Yes.
Can I go back? Sorry.
Sure.
Just, I was looking at, again, at these window details on
Yes.
page 10. And you've called out vinyl windows.
That is probably a typo. These are
I mean, you've
vinyl.
got your aluminum diamond panels. I mean, let's not turn this into a big trailer.
That's the mixed-use building, so, right. That is, I
We're gonna watch for
believe, does not look like the right section, window section. Head jamb and sill, so, right.
When you're, yeah.
Yes, it's good to have the draft stage.
Yes.
Good to have the draft stage.
Call, Reagan.
Yeah.
Sharp eye.
Right. All right, and 3.11, 3.12, you get a better look at the proposed panels there on the right-hand side. And 3.13, that's just the end elevation there with the windows, and you can see beyond the entrance underneath. 3.14, also through the stairwell area with the side. That's the side, kind of hard to see with the building being the angle going away from you on the left. And then if you look
Hard to
vertical,
imagine.
if you look at the vertical piece, that's where that hotel sign is that you saw in the 3D. That will help
Right.
place you. Trying to find it, and you can see the canopy to the right.
So where's the garage entry, the drive-through on?
That
Shouldn't
is-
it be on 3.14?
It is on 3.14, but it's angled, so you're seeing it to the right of the stair tower that's grayed out.
Okay.
And 3.15.
Oh.
3.15 shows the window details, at least in the beginning stages of window details. They're not complete, but just to give you an idea of the size and shape and dimensions.
Operational at all? Do they open?
I believe the
Smaller pane
smaller
would be a
pane.
casement.
I'm sure there are sort of weird hotel rules about what windows can be open. Functional.
They usually have limiters.
All
They can
limited,
limit,
4-inch,
yeah.
yeah.
They'll have limiters. I believe the first floor is fixed, though.
Yes.
The taller 10-foot is fixed. And then again, the cornice details showing the dimensions and the extensions of the aluminum wrap, 1'6" out from the building face, and then the horizontal banding at the roof on 3.16. 3.17 shows the brick veneer and the brick soldier core supplied at the top of that banding at the cornice on L5, and then the preformed metal cornice, the preformed metal cornice at the stair roof. So, and then again, the brick band and the pre-finished aluminum trim, how that's executed. It's going to be a 2-foot high piece, and the entire brick veneer detail will be 3'4", so that'll be a sizable piece. And then moving on to 3.19, window head jamb and sill. I believe these are these are proposed to be vinyl? Yes. In the hotel.
Black on the exterior.
I don't think that we're going to find that acceptable.
Okay.
I think we'd prefer a metal clad
Yeah.
or even
Does anybody
Fiberglass
else
clad,
want to chirp in at this time? Because they'll be coming back soon. Margot, you don't care? The windows?
Do you want vinyl or
I
something else?
would not like vinyl.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry to interrupt you.
All right. Well, that's why we're here. And then the appendix is basically for reference, like just the plans, nothing new there, other than just for your information, all the plans and site plans and so forth, and the project data, if you had any questions about that. And then, of course, the parking system, and we've seen all that in our previous meetings. So how are we doing on time?
We've got some time. Let's, everybody make a comment or a question. Martin, do you want to start or no? Yes, he does.
I'll start. Okay, I'll start. It's here. It's fine. It's safe, and I wish there was some excitement about the building. If we look at the fish scale texture added, I appreciate the gesture. Again, this picture frame where the horizontal band at the base is the same as the verticals, is the same as the cap on top, it drives me nuts. There's no hierarchy to it. There's no really nice sense of detail to it. I'd rather that you find a way to detail between the fish scales meeting the brick return of the pilaster. I think that'd be more interesting than this sort of simple picture frame, break metal. Again, it's a big gesture on the side of a building that lacks historic detailing. I just wish we have bands here that are continuous through the whole building that I would like to have seen a little uplift at the canopies, at the entrances. Just a little slight gesture that would go a long way. Maybe a panel at the attic level, at the very top level, maybe a panel between those windows to signify, some sort of historic. You see it in historic buildings where at that level, at that very top level, you have some gesture that sort of is like a coin or something that gives the building some interest. It's, to me, I just would like to see something that just is eye-catching that shows. I mean, this is, like I said, it's very safe. It does the job. It fits. It's fine.
Both buildings, Martin, or just one building in particular?
Both buildings.
Okay.
And
Can we move on?
maybe. I'm sorry. Am I interrupting?
I know. I'm trying to hurry things up. We have 7 people to make.
I know,
comment.
but you asked me to go, and let me just finish.
Okay.
Maybe an arch. We're the city of arches, right? Historically, we have arches. We have one at the music hall. Maybe there's an arch that goes between these two buildings. Go ahead.
All right. As long as you apologize, that's fine.
I apologize for snapping. I just want more.
Yes, I do also. Reagan.
I agree for most of the comments. I'm still not necessarily very excited by the design of either buildings. Can't say that it's 100% your fault either, because this is what happens sometimes when you have sort of more committee design and so many different opinions, and you're trying to figure out how to appease all of those opinions. And so I think what you end up with is a very safe, fine design that could be more interesting, but I know you don't want to go too far because it might, freak out somebody else. So yeah, that's really all I have to say.
Okay.
Dan?
I think it fits in. I think you've done a nice job to adjust the mass like we've asked, especially on the Maplewood or the entrance from the pond. And I think you've added some interest with the glass towers and some of the out that makes it look different. So I'm in general, I'm pleased, I think.
I'm sorry, I would toss the whole thing in the trash. We've made it so safe, we've pushed you to make this so safe, that this premier location on the pond, the main entrance across from the north side, the first building you see is absolutely brick and square windows, no signature features, nothing that pops to the eye. It's 60 feet tall. I'm sorry. And I think to some extent the committee has, in trying to make it look like the rest of Portsmouth, we've forced you to give us something that's less than I know you can do. And if I had been able to get behind a building of this mass, I would have wanted you to make something spectacular. But I can't get behind the mass, so I can't encourage you to make something spectacular because I can't have a spectacular mass of this size. If you brought me a spectacular building that was smaller in mass, I would be right there with you. This, to me, is just putting a bunch of bricks and windows, very tall building with nothing special about it, in a premier location, and I'm very disappointed.
Thank you. I'll agree with Commissioner Ryan's comments. I do think it needs it's very safe, it needs some character, it needs something to define and make this, one Rains Ave, like it doesn't compare to anything else, you know what I mean? Like you remember it, you take a picture with your mother in front of it. I know that's not, obviously those buildings are harder to produce, that's, but yeah, just something like, he mentioned like a coin or an arch or something to, signify, even it could be some old story of the history that was there before this building. People love that stuff in Portsmouth. But it is very safe. I think we've improved the entrances a little bit. They're more defined. You can tell on the mixed-use building that there are 3 different separate uses there. It doesn't look like it's just 3 different entrances to one big restaurant or one big, so it's much more, communicates that much more better. But.
Well, I think sometimes safe is okay. And I'm just going to say why I'm going to say that. Because when you look at especially the mixed-use building, it's essentially 2.0. It's essentially a 3-story building. Or even better yet, we can look at, I think, 2.2 as well. But if you look at 2.0, it's a 3-story building, which I think the simple architecture really complements that. And I think that the recessed balconies are going to add character that will be, I think if you try to get too complicated with other things and you have recessed balconies and you have 3 floors and 4 floors, step back and so forth, all of that I think begs for a simpler expression in the facade so that all of the volumes sort of feel good together. And I think that's why a lot of traditionalists, and I sort of do stand in both courts depending on my client and their wishes, but I think that the base on this is not really being done, is this rendering and the pre-designed sort of expression is not, you're not going to be fully appreciating how beautiful that's going to be in real life when it's built and the bricks are dark and the frames are dark and it's all that glass. And
This is still a work session.
right.
Yeah, okay.
So I just wanted to give you
I
a
know
quick,
you're
a quick-
defending and rationalizing at this
Well,
point. and We're
giving
just
you a
trying to
quick-
give you our opinions, because that's why you
just
come
giving
here.
you a quick, simple can be good thing.
Yeah.
So
And
go ahead.
also, I have a few opinions.
Oh, yes, right.
Yeah, I forgot. So I agree with Martin that details need to be placed on probably the mixed-use building at the front on Maplewood, on the large canopy, possibly framing them in something that resembles the period of the train station, et cetera. In other words, some dark metal around it that has some details in it would mix with this building quite well.
What page are you?
2.1.
2.1.
Is there a way I can get forward
Got it.
quickly besides doing this?
Not that I know of.
So I agree that those canopies, I mean, those are your basic airport canopies. Those are the ones that are on the new Pease Trade Terminal. You know, like we've already said, this is the premier location. You guys have got it, so love it, you know? And I don't have any problem with the mixed-use building as far as the windows and the brick, et cetera. I like the fact that you've used cast stone or whatever for your lintels and your sills. To me, that pushes it up a step, you know, because a cheaper brick building doesn't have that. And then obviously, it could have been all EFS if this wasn't a historic district, you know, and, well, it could have been. You see it. And then with all kinds of fake Spanish details on it or something.
Well, we're not proposing it.
Going to the site, wherever it is,
Appendix,
get past all of these. Okay, 4.0. It doesn't say that on 4.0, what I'm looking for. It says on 4.4, this is what bothers me. And I just watched a Chronicle, and lo and behold, they had, the show was about East Boston and the development that they gave down there in East Boston, where they built a lot of large buildings, hotels, and residential
Mixed use,
structures,
yeah.
with the idea of similar waterfront parks and a boat launching ramp and all this stuff. And then they interviewed the residents of this place. And lo and behold, the boat launching ramp and all that never came. And the parks have been a disaster. You know, they're just a mess. So, but that's in East Boston, which I know is a pretty tough place. So what I'm seeing here is optional reconstructed timber pier going over, and then optional kayak launch ramp going over. I want that part of the project.
And that's how it was approved with the planning board. So that's, I had that note last time that we were supposed to delete optional, and I apologize. That is not optional. That is part of the approval.
planning board has beat you to the punch, so you can be rest assured.
I hate that.
No, you should love
As
it.
Carla said, we hadn't updated this
No,
appendix
I'm
pages, so.
certainly glad that
Yep.
they saw that, because that bothered me. That's like something that, you know,
No, we-
the whole place could get
They're all-
done. And
I
you say,
think-
well, it was optional, we just decided not to go.
I think Nick can attest that we've spent a lot of time on that pier, and we were in favor of it. We got some pushback from Conservation Commission, and so we sort of put it to a question, and we put it to a question with the planning board, and everyone said, no, we want it, and we're
Certainly.
committed to it, and we're committed to the
Access to
greenway
the
and the access to the pond.
So
Would
those
be,
are,
would be good to get a detail for that
yeah.
in this,
What-
the
you know, when-
material and
You know, what does this
any
pier going to
handrails
look
or
like?
anything you're planning.
Thank you very much. That's it for me then. So if there's nobody else, I'll open it up to the public.
Can I just say?
Yeah, one more quickie.
I typically never do this, but I'm this close to not approving this. And if you would like Carla just add some architecture, I'll be there. I'll support this. But for right now, it's just sort of vanilla. Let's throw some stuff on top of it and make some architecture here. We're this close, and we want to get there.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Heartfelt comment.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, all righty. So the public,
Thank you.
Good evening, Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. I sent a list in my letter of a comparison of May to June, and I agree with all of you that it has become really plain. I think they worked hard to make everybody happy, and now it's plain. But I was in Hanover. I didn't have time to have it printed out, so I brought my lovely cell phone that my children have showed me how to use. And they have a lovely brick building there, which I'd be happy to show Carla, because she's the one who can decide, well, you guys can all look at it, if I'm allowed to do that. Sure. So it's a 5-story, it's in Hanover, and then it drops down, if I can get that.
Hanover Inn, yeah.
Hanover, New Hampshire, and then it drops down all the way to 2 stories. It's all brick, but see how they did the entrances? You know what I mean? And then they have, this entrance is recessed, and it's round and has a thing, and their front has, instead of having those windows that open, they created an actual open space underneath.
Oh, I see that.
Would you like to see that? I'm sure you would. So.
yeah, we can look at it. We do have,
Okay, you're on a time constraint.
we do have time constraints.
I'll look it up here.
Okay.
It's the Hanover.
Hanover Inn.
Hanover, New Hampshire, and it's the J. Crew building is what we're looking at. I don't know the address. I was there, I took the picture, I said,
Wonder
this
it's
is great.
tasty.
Sorry, I can send it over.
Don't tell anyone in Hanover it's
I
the
sent
J.
it to
Crew
Nick for an
building.
example of something else. So I was curious about how far the setbacks, like looking at 2.1, one of the sides, 2.0, they show the setbacks for the entrances, and on one they show windows, but then when you come to the front of the building, that one shows the windows on the left side, but when you get to the front, it's not wide enough to get windows, so it makes me think those setbacks are different widths. So how far do the setbacks go is kind of a question that came to mind. I like the fact that they turned the balconies from white to green. I think it really it takes away from the busyness of the balconies. The top floor of the hotel windows originally had they were black I think they were black. Let me make sure. They were black with a white casement around them. I guess it was like thin trim. And I found that to be a little bit more interesting than the flat right against the top. I like the windows on the upstairs terrace. I do worry about it because sound reflects off the water, although people who don't live there don't know this. But if you put something up high and then you have a lot of people up there, and even if they're chatting, the people on the other side of the pond can hear it. So there might need to be some limitations on that. And it looks like when you look at 2.6, it looks like the building got slightly enlarged on that top floor. So before it had like a little setback for that top floor, and now it's been filled all the way into the side. So those were some questions that I kind of had. Did I go too fast for you, Carla?
No, I'm not sure what the area is, but on here.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, that's it. That was all.
That's good. Thank you
that's
very
it.
much, Elizabeth.
You're welcome. I did it speedy.
So I think that you have seen that, in general, we're favorable. We would like to see a bit more interest in the buildings to reflect the place that they are in.
Yes.
What we are all going to call the most valuable piece of land in Portsmouth, seriously. And my concern of the pier has been done. I'm also concerned with your material choice. I'm thinking these are 5-story buildings. Vinyl and aluminum, I don't know. I just don't think so.
On the
These
window.
are buildings that are supposed to be permanent. So, going to come back for another, or where do you want to
I
be?
think we'll continue and talk to the team and
Okay.
see where we're at.
All righty. So we need a motion to
Move that we
continue?
continue this work session to next month.
July?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wasn't so bad, was I?
No, and how did we do on time?
Pretty well.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen, you want to grab a chair? Work session requested by One Market Square LLC, owner for property located at 1 Congress Street, wherein permission is requested to allow renovations to an existing structure, repair and upgrade building facades along Congress and High Street, and new construction to an existing structure, replace rear shed additions with a new 4 to 5 story addition as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 117 as Lot 14 and 15 and lies within Character District 4, Character District 5, and the Downtown Overlay and Historic District. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having us back again. Tracy Kozak, Architects, here with the owners, Mark McNabb and Marie Bodie of McNabb Properties, representing One Market Square LLC. So, let's see, picking up on where we left off,
Okay.
we made a few changes.
Yes, you did.
I'm glad you noticed.
Glad you know.
Smooth things out a little bit.
Keep going.
We'll just go through the drawings, I suppose.
Are there any changes to the front, the facades on the Congress Street?
Just some details on Congress Street. We did some more refinement of the replicated window heads on the second floor of 3 Congress. No changes on 1 Congress.
And they brought, I think you said you brought that in because of returning the coins.
Yeah, there was some
on that.
discussion about it's so busy with all the Victorian coins, but and we have pictures of that on page 2 that shows the original configuration in 1860. That was the style, that was the thing, and
That's on the so-called Opera House, right?
no, this is facing popovers right on Congress Street. It's a
Yeah, it's that second one in from the
Oh,
top
I
one.
see.
But John, you're right, there's also coins on the Opera House.
yep. So and then
Boy, they really glopped over that building, didn't they, for a small building?
it's interesting to see how these buildings changed over time. And then the one to the right of it is how it was in 1930 and 1940. And that window transom with the casements below are what we're trying to bring back to that second story level. We're not proposing going all the way back to just the 3 double hungs on that level because we want to keep the light. But what they lost at that time was the coining. It went through 3 or 4 major renovations. When the bank building on the corner that's there now was built, they wanted to upgrade, so they replaced their wooden storefront with a more ornate cast iron storefront. That is mostly still there, thankfully. And then in the 40s, they changed the windows like you see here, and then in the 80s, they tore those out, and what you see today is there, which are 1/1 sashes. There's no trim at all. It's pretty bland. So
Okay.
that's all we're doing on the front on Congress Street.
If you want to move along.
Along. I brought some more photos. The photos below that were the Dolphin Hotel that showed the drop-off area for the vehicles in front. Details of the Opera House.
Thanks. That's a
Yeah.
great picture of the chimney being held up by a 4x4.
You know, there are far too many photos like that in the Athenaeum, all neighborhoods, as you know. The next page, page 3, 403. So it's hard to see the tops of buildings from the street on these narrow roads, and I took most of these from the top of the parking garage because there were, I don't think people could remember in their head without being there what's on the top floors of these buildings. And to the right, you see the funky glass skywall, I guess I'll call it, with the copper fins and the pointy dormers. To the left, that is on our building that we're renovating. The Opera House is in the foreground. On the bottom left is the top floor of the Pierce Block. And it has the rounded dormers, and in between that spans a glass wall with a pipe rail. basically, and then there's a bit of a sloped mansard copper roof on top of that. And that pretty much runs down the whole of High Street.
Keep going, excuse me for 1
Yep.
minute.
All right, elevations. So on the left, Congress Street, as we talked about, there are some details of the stained glass transom that we are bringing back from the 1930s, 1940s era. We slightly adjusted the flanking roofs on the side of the new dormer we're proposing on top. It comes all the way down. Previously, we had held it back a couple of feet, but now it's engaged as it is currently. Those are the only changes on those pages. No changes on that page. Demolition roof plan is essentially the same.
Same.
The difference on this first floor plan is that we made the drop-off shallower. It had eroded into the building further, and we've tried to make it as shallow as possible while still working. So, and we brought the sidewalk in along with it. So that essentially becomes a recessed storefront, so pedestrians can walk along High Street, and then they can, scoop into the building, enjoy the retail restaurants in there and the life, and walk back out. That's also the drop-off. Parking level has not changed, and demo elevations have not changed. We just talked about that. Okay, High Street. These are most of the changes here, and let's see.
Give me a page, please. It's totally roaming around.
422. 422. 422. So we adjusted a number of things, most notably the corner glass element is rounded instead of triangular. We scooped it up at the bottom and shrunk it down on top and simplified it.
And that'll be truly curved glass. That won't be.
Beautiful.
We raised the header on the arcade. We enlarged the second floor windows in height. We adjusted the third floor windows in height so that they better align with the fenestration on the old buildings to the left. Before they had all been exactly the same. So it's a subtle difference, but I think it adds a lot of scale, and it ties back to the old building. We now have inline casement windows, so they're not protruding on a point that sticks out beyond the sill. It's just parallel to the plane of the building. The upper floor mansard glass is the same, but the fins in between them, we call them buttresses. They actually are structural elements. We reduced those in height by a third, so they're flattened out quite a bit. The marquee over the Opera House entry, that's the main entrance to the building. We wanted to make sure it was not overpowered by the buildings to either side. It's such a tiny little building, and it's super special, so we just increased that radius a slight amount. You won't see it in the 2D drawings, but it does not protrude any further than the new awning we're proposing on the new building. But before it was only out about a foot or so, so it was perhaps hard to find the entrance. And also last time we made this big change, which I'm not sure if it was realized, but we moved the entire addition back away from High Street, 18 inches, and that was one of the very first comments from the first work session is, isn't this too close to the street? Or, you're blocking the view of the Opera House. So we pushed it all back so that when you're coming from Ladd Street or Haven, that corner's proud of that little jewel box of the Opera House, and you can see it. We also pushed the elevator and stair towers to the far back of the building, so the skyline is not interrupted. That arch, that beautiful arched cornice on top of that Opera House is pure and it will be experienced from the street level.
What are those windows up there, if that's a stair tower or whatever?
That's set way back. Yeah, that's back. You won't see that from the street.
Oh.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah.
Okay. This is an oblique view from the corner, and the only reason we're showing this is so that you can appreciate the existing architecture on 1 Congress Street and that really funky sky window. It's actually a transom dormer, and it goes way above the roof line, and there are transom windows facing west that bring light in from the back, as well as the skywall windows on the bottom of it facing High Street. Those are original to the building, and it's such a special story about how this building was used.
Photographic
It was used for a
studio.
photography studio, and it was all about light and how do you get light into this special space. And it just tells a story about how this building was used over in history.
So we don't see those, but on the back of that roof line,
You
there's
can
another
see it
set
a
of
little bit from the top of the Hanover parking garage, but like nowhere else.
I never knew that.
Yeah,
It's really neat in the space.
Yeah.
it's an amazing
Must be.
space.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I know that was the inspiration to try to carry these themes of the original building, the things that make them unique and special, and define High Street, to not lose that with a generic addition that you might find on State Street or anywhere else. So, we're trying to make this as special and character defining as what is already there. And the back alley, not particularly character defining, but it's the back alley facing Newbury's, plain and simple. It's not really open to the public. It's a service alley. There's a fire exit and some trash chutes for the underground dumpsters.
The alley the Haven Court, whatever.
Haven Court, yep. That is,
It's still
that's
got
not
an
the alley.
element of bizarro into it, actually.
That's showing the,
Yeah,
the roof.
that's way in the future, right? I mean, that's got the serpentine, almost dragon-like,
Oh, the paving pattern.
even, yeah, bizarro, that's what it is. Almost like, here they'd be witches.
Luckily, that's a planning board issue.
Is that it? Would you like some time for questions?
That's essentially, we had the 3D views, which we like, so I hope you like them too. They show the pedestrian vantage point, which is important, and then there are materials that we'd like to use in the back.
So are these tiles, I see it's some kind of tile panel,
Yes, well,
Pitarac slim terracotta cladding, so these aren't actually these aren't tiles that are put on a building.
it's not, so the bottom floor is granite. Floors 2 and 3, we're proposing a glazed terracotta tile. It was, I think it was used recently on the 111 Maplewood project, but that was not glazed, it's just raw terracotta. This would have a glaze on it to be a little bit more sympathetic to the surroundings, make it a little softer.
Some of these,
Yeah.
I mean, this one thing looks like armor or something.
Oh, yeah, the shiny one. We're not doing the shiny one. The samples on sheet 441 in the middle, it's kind of a neutral, we call it tea with milk. It's a neutral putty color.
Tea with milk.
Tea with milk, yep. Well, part of that comes from, this was, the style of 1 Congress it's kind of Victorian Romanesque. It has a blend of both, and at that period of time, it was drawing influences from British architecture, and they had a lot of similar features, such as the dormers and the brickwork and the brownstone trim. So they use this a bit over there, and it seems to work really well as it plays with the adjacent red clay brick.
It reminds me of that historic building Slough House in London. Slow horses. Never mind.
I know that one.
Any comments from anybody? Brian?
Yeah, I would thank you for bringing back the pedestrian experience right on High Street that I was worried might have been lost with the,
It's too late.
with the pull. I think you got a good balance now. I think there's pedestrian and you can still drive in and drop off. I think that you pulled it off quite well. And I think the corner tower is a little less artistic and more architectural, and you can walk under it. I think that's great. I think everyone can experience it now instead of it being like a little interior sort of dead end space. And this building's dynamic and exciting and it's fun, and I think that's everything that I think will add to the success of this building. I do miss the corner. I know someone's going to kick me for saying this, but I do miss those corner windows. Maybe you can bring them back just in, sparingly in just a couple of places. If you look at High Street, there's that little recess. Maybe you can bring them back there. It's just that I still think the building's very successful. That's just an opinion about those. Yeah, I think it's you're doing. I like this.
I agree. I even agree with the windows. I think that I think I think that you've had such a really interesting design earlier on, and then again, our committee is pushing you more towards the safer, blander stuff, and I think that's what's happened here. But it's not bad. It's not boring or bland yet. So please don't go any further.
Couple more work sessions.
No, I was, I'm very pleased, obviously, with the historic buildings. What you're doing is really wonderful and lovely, and I think that even the dormer that you're putting on in front of 3 Congress Street, I think it works. It's all going to be really, really lovely. The new building and back, all the changes that you've made, setting the new building back a little bit, really highlighting the Opera House, I think is going to be really successful. I've always thought that this fourth floor sort of skylight dormery things is going to be really exciting. I think it really works well with this fantastic, unique, historic feature on the first building, and working on that, I think, is a no-brainer, just, taking that and pulling it through. I do also miss these corner windows. I think it's, these are, it's a new building. You're looking for new ways to express some historic features, which is what these casements are, and it would have been, I think, a really interesting thing, and really would have drawn the eye back into this tiny little street that there's nobody goes back there or hangs back out. Obviously, it's just a parking lot, and so this would be a big improvement and a really interesting difference with this very plain parking garage. Just that contrast. So, I think that this glass corner is interesting, but I think that you could probably make it more interesting. It seems a little bit out of place now, whereas the sort of more angular shape, I thought, actually fit with what you were trying to do with this new building. So, otherwise, I'm excited to see how it will continue to evolve.
I just like to echo that bringing that building back just a little bit and accentuating the Opera House is amazing, and it has made a huge difference and brought basically the 3 buildings together. I like the roundness of the corner. It reminds me of a lighthouse, which I thought fit in better than with the Louvre pyramid or whatever you were doing before. So I have to go with the round one. But I'm really impressed in how you brought the sidewalks back, allow the street to be a street again, and yet still have the openings for the cars. So I'm really happy.
I really like what you've done with the corner. I think that simplifying it has made it stronger, and so it sits really well on the corner. I think it now, because you've simplified that, it's given you the opportunity to maybe go a little bit more crazy with the windows. So I think what you had before was too much, and now you have the opportunity to bring back some of that uniqueness in the windows because you've been able to simplify and give us a nice, strong corner. I do have a question on 4.33, the dormer window that's showing on 3 Congress. Is that an older version where it's set further back? Because you said something about pulling it forward?
No, actually, I think these are both up to date. The dormer itself did not change. It was the roof to the sides of it, the sloped roofs that comes down to the cornice flanking the dormer. We had that previously. It was cut a little further back from the dormer, and now it's hugging it tighter.
I know that this is not, 4.33 is not how most people will see this, but there's something about it being set back and those cheek walls so tight, to me, makes it look very, compared to what's to the right of it, where that's very upfront.
Sticks out more.
To me, there's a really big contrast that for some reason feels a little uncomfortable, but I also know that this is not the angle.
That's it.
That
Yeah,
you're
the picture really
necessarily-
does us injustice on that.
Yeah, okay. So I would encourage you to take a look at freeing the windows, whether it's what you had before or some other version. I think you now have license to play with that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is very special. I think there's a lot of character-defining characteristics in this. I really like that we're celebrating the Opera House. I really like that we're celebrating the photography studio and everything, and then we're kind of taking that old historic theme and making it modern. You know what I mean? We're not telling a fake story. We're keeping the old story, and then we're doing something modern. We're building like we would build today. I like that. The corner, I like the corner, is very strong. I did like the old one as well. I don't know if I liked the old one just because we were comparing it to the steeple of the church, and it was kind of like matching. So I keep wanting to do that just because we were doing it before, I think. But I think this one is still strong enough, and you know what I mean? It kind of has its own strength. And I do like that the Haven Court in the High Street will give kind of that pedestrian feel, but still allow a car to access it. We have the same kind of feel down on Ceres Street, where it's very pedestrian friendly. Every now and again, a car will, come down very slowly, kind of parting the seas. But I think that fits. I think that works.
All right, Karen. Thank you.
Okay.
So everyone has said what I would have said, but I'm going to make an impassioned plea to leave these windows that you have. To me, these are very Parisian. I think it works really nice in the building, and it's not over the top. Those are windows that everyone understands, and it just looks to me so serene. I think it's not competing with the front buildings. I like what you've done with the glass on the corner, and then you've done it again on Haven Court with another interpretation of that. But again, none of it is over the top. It's not trying to win anyone over with some particular architectural detail. I think it's good. I like it, but leave the windows.
So I'm just going to make a comment. I agree with Karen. Please leave those windows. I mean, we're not trying to make this, this is not the Louvre here. This is not Guggenheim or something. This is a small hotel in the back street here. You've made it very tasteful. And I think I'm very happy with the way that it is right now. That's it for me.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. What about the materials? We have some slate on the roof, the granite terracotta, sort of a bronze, anodized bronze finish on the metalwork.
Using that bronze finish.
Okay.
Gives
I think that's it for the materials.
An old world charm.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it won't actually turn out quite as like
Actually,
coral pink as it looks in the renderings.
you know, I forgot to put this in here, but the glass, so there's the green glass that
Yeah, that's a
is,
weird
how could I not have that sample? It's called dichroic glass. It's the coolest thing. It just has a bit of a coating on it that refracts light as you move. So it's kind of subtle. It's not like a big stained glass mosaic, but as you walk past it, it might change subtly from a blue to a green to a purple, depending on how the light refracts through this glass. We can bring some samples next time.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I know they make paint colors like that.
They do.
Some cars
They
paint
do,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so is anybody in the public like to speak about this project?
We got one hand up.
Oh, you do have a hand up.
We'll go with Liz first.
Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. First, I'd like to apologize to all of you, and I had already apologized to the architect about my ineffective communication at the last meeting regarding this thing, and I allowed my frustration to get the better of me, so I do want to apologize. I have been on vacation, so I'm doing a lot better. I'd like it if you could bring up the front of the building, if you're able to, Nick, the 3D, this type of picture.
Conger Street?
Conger Street, yeah.
2.1.
Do you know what number it
What
is,
number?
Tracy?
433.
Yeah, 433. That's probably a good one.
So I love everything about this. The only thing I don't like is the thing on the left, I don't know what it's called, that sticks out underneath the sky, the dormer. I think that all the window detail that's going to be put into that window, and the left side, I don't know what anything's called, the left side where the bricks kind of come in, I feel strongly that that thing across the top, it's the cornice, but it sticks out. But I really feel it takes away from all the detail in that dormer. And when you sit across the street from it, that's what you're going to see.
So
you know?
that's existing.
Yeah.
On the other side?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it in the photo.
We're not touching that.
You're not touching it.
We're just restoring it.
It is unusually large. It's,
Yeah, it
it's,
does seem
it's
really
strange for Portsmouth. It
Yeah.
sticks out about 3 feet, and it has these super heavy corbels.
Maybe it's the dormer that makes
Crazy.
your eye go up there, but the dormer is beautiful, I think, and that piece kind of takes away from it. So that's my 2 cents on the front. On the back, I like the fact that you changed the windows to a more European style, if you want to call it that. I like the new corner thing. It is kind of modern looking, but I think it's been toned down substantially from what was there. I like the fact that the bottom is open and the top you can stand up there and look out. I like that. I don't particularly care for the white that runs along there on the left side, but it doesn't run on the right. It almost steals the show. And I have concerns about the sheen on that terracotta, slim terracotta. I looked it up online and looked at the different colors they have and the different sheens they have. The sheen that's presented in this picture seems very, very shiny. And I feel strongly that when you're this is where you're going to stand when you come out of the back of the garage, and it almost takes away from the North Church, because it seems like it's going to be really bright. That's just from my perspective. It almost has, to me, like a movie theater type look. And I was curious about whether the elevator could be moved inside closer to where your drop off is, so that, I'm not an architect or an engineer, but if you think about it, if you could drop off the cars and then the valets could immediately park the cars into that without having to go out and around, because that's what's being presented, is that they're going to pull up on High Street underneath, and then the valet is going to take them out and drive down Haven Court, just that quarter of that 2 things, and to where the person in the blue is, that's where the in for the elevator is. So I don't know if there's a way to make that differently, but that would be just a suggestion.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, you got somebody online.
Bill Downing? You can speak, Bill?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So I just want to say thank you very much to Mark and his group. Really like the roof line. It's really getting old to see these boxy buildings with flat roofs. So, Mark, thanks so much. I think the courtyard with the circular rings in the back is excellent. And at the end of the day, I just believe this property will enhance and not detract from our integrity. So I think it looks great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Bill.
Sure.
That's it.
That's it? All righty, so we've heard from the public, and
We come back next month?
I think we'd like to go for a public hearing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're done.
we're done. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. All right.
And tell Nikolai congratulations on getting top 10. Yes, and the track championship. That's awesome.
You see everything.
I do.
I saw that too and forgot about it.
Yeah, yeah. I coach him at football, so.
Work session requested by 445 Marcy Street LLC, owner for property located at 445 Marcy Street, wherein permission is requested to allow the construction of a new single-family residence with attached garage as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 101 as Lot 3 and lies within the General Residence B in the Historic District. Welcome.
Hi there, Tracy Kozak, Architects, here with the property owners and applicants, Jim and Gail Sanders. We're back. All right, so this is our fourth work session. Fourth. We reduced the height and width of the front gable on Prey Street. We adjusted the corresponding round windows, details, trim. We reduced the scope of the solar array, and we changed to an inline shallow profile. We have some more detail on the roofing and materials, and some additional views and comparisons. So that's where we're at. Happy to take you through the package.
Good. Okay, any comments? Seriously. She's told us what she's reduced. And have we had all had a chance to look?
Nick, can you put up the...
I'm opening the model.
You said you reduced the height by how much, or the gables by how much?
So last time we came, we reduced the overall height of the building by about 3 feet.
Okay.
This time, we reduced only the front gable height. We took it in a foot and a half on either side, and then we kept the pitch at 12.12, so that lowered the pitch about a foot and change, maybe 2 feet. The main ridge that goes across the back is the same. It's just that front gable piece that we reduced. And the rest is materials and detailing and getting it all to mesh.
Keep going. Everybody's got it.
Yeah.
We've all got it.
We did look at a comparison of the massing of the surroundings again, that keeps coming up. So it's here on page H20. We're 8 feet shorter than the house on the corner of Prey and Marcy. It's bigger than the candy shop. It is bigger than some of the small houses to the south. It is about average if you take all the big houses to the north and the small houses to the left. The footprint is roughly about 250 square feet bigger than an average of the neighborhood, but the coverage, because it's such a big lot, is about 7% less than the surrounding parcels. So all in all, the density of this parcel is less than the surroundings, and we truly believe it fits. There we go. So you can see for yourself.
Everybody can look at this. Rich, you want to see it in 3D. Might as well look at it. Costs the city a lot of money.
It's also worth noting the two corner porches. So there's one on the front, by the front door on Prairie Street, and then there's a private back porch for the residents. And the porches are important to this. It's sort of a new interpretation of a shingle style, Queen Anne style. The porches were a big element at that time period when this vernacular was developed. To it was a place where people could sit on their stoop and say hello to people going by, and that is an inherent value with the applicant. They want their home to be welcoming and to really embrace community, and I think it's also important just with the goal of sustainability and resilience in this challenging site where we're in a flood zone and we can't do a basement, and we're in the neighborhood that the flood emergency plan says just evacuate. We don't think that's necessary. We think that by not only having a sustainable, energy efficient building, things like porches, they help strengthen the sense of community and neighbors helping neighbors, and it's just a motif you see on the style of buildings that we're drawing reference from. So it's an important element.
So if there is a flood,
everybody gathers on the porch.
Yeah.
This would be the.
Well, yeah,
the
see,
house
so
that
this is the house where all the infrastructure is above. There's no basement, so they will they'll be running, they'll be cooking dinner and and full steam ahead. Yep.
Okay. Anybody else we haven't gone around yet here? Want to give an opinion?
My biggest concern was the overwhelming size facing the small houses on Prairie Street. And I think you did a great job bringing that dormer down. On one of these shots you had it closer, Nick, you can actually see now that the size is not so overwhelming to those two smaller houses. Yeah, that's a good one. So that's a nice job on the dormer. I think hopefully it'll make the neighbors feel a lot better too. Shadows and what they have to look at. And I love porches. Never complained about porches.
I also want to point out that we located this on the parcel, so directly across from Prairie Street, there's a opening of green space between two houses.
Yep.
That's where this house is. So we tried to be sensitive to the massing across the street.
Yeah, I think you did a great job.
Anyone else?
No, I think my biggest concern too was the massing, or just this being a lot larger than all the other old houses in the neighborhood. But I think you've demonstrated, I understand the lot is a lot bigger. So I think you've demonstrated that, and that it's 10% average smaller than density-wise for the lot. And the fact that you've brought it down 3 feet and then reduced that dormer as well. Because I do understand the concerns of the neighbors and stuff regarding sunlight, views, all that kind of thing. But I think this works for me.
I'll just say that I still think that it's an interesting and successful design, taking a lot of historic references and aspects of the surrounding houses, but putting it into an obviously modern design so that it fits in, but it's not pretending to be a historic house, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, as well. I'm glad we're not building it, making it look like it's been there for 200 years, and trying to tell a fake story.
Anyone else? Should I open this up to the public? Has everyone had a chance? Okay. I'm going to open this up to the public and ask for anyone to come up and speak.
If I can ask the Commission's indulgence, my name is Mark Minnenberg. I would like to speak afterwards, but I wanted to say that the neighborhood as such has very strong feelings about this, quite contrary to the opinions we're hearing now. We want to be very supportive of the Sanders' right to build a house here and enjoy it and be our neighbors. But we are rather disturbed by the current design, and we have been from the beginning. So some people are going to come up, we're going to express human emotion. We're not at all concerned about, we're not in any way trying to cause trouble with our neighbors who have been here longer than we will, some of us, and will be here a long time.
All of you.
But we have strong emotions about it, right? We have put our lives into these historic homes, and we feel that this home does not fit the character of the neighborhood. And we realize that's a subjective judgment, that putting pieces of the house together, putting elements of all our houses together does not make this a house that ensures the historic character of it. And you have to remember the level of detail that we have to adhere to maintain our houses, right? We're not allowed to do anything with these houses that's not accurate. And that puts a huge burden and also creates a lot of love for the homes that we have, right? So that's where the emotion's coming from, and I'm going to leave it there.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring the neighborhood.
All right.
We want to leave friends, we're not,
We don't run on emotion up here.
You're what, I'm sorry, what did you say?
We don't run on emotion here.
No, clear facts. So, Susan McDougall, 39 Praise Street, just beyond this on the left. Yes, thank you. I'm remembering being here, and you're talking quite a long time about the wood framed windows that you insisted on putting in my house. And you said people walk right by your house. They're right up close to it. So it really matters what this looks like. So speaking, I mean, that just kind of follows Mark in that we have, I mean, this isn't really it's almost a lane. I walked down McDonough Street today, and that is, that's at least 3 times the size of this. And if you go all the way down width of it, and you go all the way down to the end of McDonough Street, there's a brand new, big, tall house at the corner. And facing it on the north side along the railroad tracks, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the intersection road, is a row of houses that are about the same scale. So I was looking at the same thing happening on McDonough Street that is apparently happening here. And I'll just go back to what I said at the beginning when I spoke to you and sent a letter to you about mass, about mass. And I appreciate the architects and the owner's attempt to reduce the height of this building, but mass, I believe, is height times depth times width. And this appears to be a very big lot. It is by square footage, but its buildable footprint is very small. So the desire of the owners to have a big house on what appeared to be a very big buildable lot kind of aren't jiving. You're trying to fit a very big vision into what really isn't a very big buildable lot. There's a small buildable footprint, and that has been acknowledged by the architect. It's been acknowledged in the soil stuff. It floods on the other side, forcing them to put this desire to have a big house into a very small buildable footprint.
Okay.
So it shoves right up against Praise Street. So I don't believe it fits your guidelines for massing, nor for scale, for breaking it up, or any of those things I mentioned in my first letter. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Don't forget to give your name.
I will, just a minute. I just need a minute. Sorry.
We'll get this together. I'm up here as a resident. I very much like Jim and Gail, and I'm so sorry. This is not easy to be up here because this has nothing to do with Gail and Jim.
Why don't you start
Your
with
folks-
something easy and tell us your name?
Sally L. Shout. I live at 17 Praise Street.
Thank you.
And I've been in the area since the 70s. I've graduated. I remember, the candy shop, the ice cream store, being here, graduating high school. Know that this area was not a great area that we lived in today, and there's been a lot of improvements. Love the yard. I've always known that there would be something. I remember Jim talking to us and saying, you guys would like to build there. Very, very happy to have you be neighbors, friends. You've always been welcome into our home, and you always will be. And you'll be near your grandkids, right? So I guess a couple comments I have, and again, this is nothing personal, but it is also things that Bruce, my husband, and I have had to deal with the HTC, and things that we've had to deal with our homes. And in keeping, there's things that we've had to comply to, not that things that we wanted to change, but we couldn't because the HTC didn't allow it. And we had to keep our house in keeping with what the area and the homes are. And I don't need to go into the particulars, but it's obviously a very old house, and we've had to abide by some rules, and part of that is keeping with the historical area. The house, I appreciate that it's been reduced in height. If you look at the average telephone pole height, that's around the same height of what the house is. Historically, is it in keeping? I'm not an expert, but if you look at the house, I don't know if on your 3D drawing you have of the top of Partridge and Marcy, it's the pink house. It's on the other side, that's Prey. So if you go off to the right, I know you have Michelle's house in the corner. So yeah, that pink house that's right there. Maybe you guys know or don't know, but that was redone in the 1990s. It shows the character and keeping of the neighborhood. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is the solar panels. I understand that they're on there. Maybe you can point out on your drawings where those are planning to be.
Do you have one of those?
Yep, so they're on the back slope of the main ridge, which faces south.
Can you put the points on? Can you put the points on it?
I'll try and help you here. Hang on.
Yeah, above that back porch, between the chimney and the back porch.
Here.
Yeah, right there.
Okay. So my comment about that, I don't know of a single home that I've even seen that has solar panels. I know that they are great to have. I don't see how the HDC would allow that. I mean, we got fined having our chimney put up replacing our chimney. So how can we have solar panels? I know it's great for the environment, but it's really not in keeping with the HDC if you look at all of the other homes in the area. And then the last comment I wanted to make, I have two questions before I have my last comment. The first question, on the drawings here, on your 3D drawings, I don't see the fence that is currently located between Jim and Gail's house proposed and Mrs. Sanders' house, Jim's mother's house. Could you point that out, please?
Yes, it's probably not here. Sorry, it's probably not shown because the data wasn't collected by the city. This is the city's model with their building. The only thing they contributed to what you're seeing on the screen is the building itself.
Okay, so could you tell us then, Tracy, how far the end of the house is to where the current existing fence is that divides between their lot and Mrs. Sanders' lots?
Sure. There's a couple drawings you could go to.
H31.
Yeah, H31. It's probably
I
the
don't have
easiest.
any of your drawings, so maybe you
We'll
can.
pull it up.
Okay, thank you.
There's probably a dimension somewhere.
Yes, there isn't a site plan that shows it.
There.
H31?
You can't click over to that.
No, I think that's still not going to be that helpful.
It's not dimensioned, but it's shown in plan on H12.
Yeah, if you go to H12, I can show here.
It's roughly 10 or 11 feet
Yeah,
from the
right
property line.
here.
There's a 10-foot setback, so it has to be a minimum of 10 feet, and we're a little bit more than that.
Because it appears, if you look on the drawing, it appears very close to the property line of where the house, where Jim was born, on Partridge Street, so.
It's
so
more
you're
than
saying-
the setback that's required.
I don't know about the setbacks, I'm just trying to get a visual of space-wise. So you're saying it's 10 feet, 5 feet, 8 feet?
Yeah, if you go to sheet 8, H31.
Can you show it up on the screen?
Shows a visual.
You could show it so we can all see.
You're working on it.
Sorry, I don't have any drawings, so I can't see.
You can see this.
They're all online, too. So you will be able to get them. You'll be able to get all that, you can get all this right now on the website when you go
That's
home.
okay, but can you just tell us, Tracy, if you have the drawings, can you tell us how far the difference is?
11 feet. 10 feet 6, 11 feet is the distance.
That's fine. And then the other question I had, how far is the distance of the house on your plot, Tracy, to the actual, where the grass meets the pavement on Prey Street?
The front setback is,
But it's not the front of the house though, right? Because you're on Partridge Street?
the front of the house is on Prey Street.
Okay, but your driveway's on Partridge Street though,
The
right?
driveway is on the back of the house,
Okay.
yes.
So from the Prey Street home where it ends and where the grass meets the pavement, how many feet do you have?
The front setback is,
A couple,
I
3,
don't think I have that exact measurement.
This? probably like 5 feet, right?
5 feet-ish, yeah.
So 5 feet from the grass where the pavement meets to the home?
More or less.
From, yeah, I believe the grass ends at the property line, but
It
I
looks
could be
like
wrong.
it might not.
I'm not sure what exactly, but
Say 5
we
to
measured
6.
the property line, which is roughly the edge of pavement.
So I have a point to all of this, but is the current fence that's there planned to stay, or is it planned to be removed?
It would be replaced with a new fence.
In the same location?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say you're 5 to 6 feet off the edge of pavement. There's at least 12 to 18 inches of grass
Right.
in the right-of-way.
There's maybe 12 inches from the grass to the pavement to where the fence is today.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't speaking to the fence,
Okay.
just because I know you want to know, and
Yep.
it's reasonable to want to know where the face of the house is in relation to the edge of pavement.
Yep.
I'm going to guess it's closer to 6 feet than 5, based on what I'm seeing here, closer up.
Okay.
Some of that grass is in the city right-of-way that's in front.
Yeah, no, so I will tell you, you may or may not know that the width of Prey Street is 14 feet wide. And the average my car is 7 feet wide, my husband's is 8 feet wide. So getting down is tough, but more importantly, since your house is going to be directly across from our driveway, we practically bump up against that current fence today. So I have to do a 4-point turn to get out of our driveway just into that road if our driveway has 2 cars in it. So that's something to consider for the length of the home that you have to the end of the road, because just saying, it's extremely difficult today.
I'm not sure if this is the correct board that you should be talking.
I'm talking about the size of your house and mass of it. So I'm just saying that just in keeping of what the neighbors are and trying to, I obviously don't want to go up and hit their house, right?
No.
So I'm just stating that, so.
Have the same situation at
Yeah.
my house also.
So overall, I guess in closing, I mean, I could talk about the shadows and all of that kind of stuff, but, and give you pictures, but basically the point that I want to leave you with is that I don't feel that the home is in keeping historically, especially with the solar panels, because again, there are no other solar panels and it's not in any historic district home around. The other point is that the historicalness of the house versus all of the other homes on Prey and Partridge, especially if the house is, the front of the house is on Prey Street. And then the last point is that, again, this is absolutely nothing personal. Really care about Jim and Gail and their family, and very much look forward them to be our neighbors and guests, and always have been and always will be. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Eberline, 454 Marcy Street. Real quick, a note, Nick, you said the models were available on the city's website. Fortunately, the link to 445
Street.
goes to 1 Congress Street.
saw
so
that,
we
so-
couldn't see that. I just follow up on point that Sally just made about the solar panels. In my letter, I laid out an alternative, which is group net metering, which I think is much more appropriate for houses in the historic district. You can get the same net zero effect that Tracy's trying to achieve for this home by working with an off-site solar array that is outside of the historic district and will not conflict with the historic character of the homes. Those are my comments. Thank you.
If I may, I'll come on the record officially this time. My name's Mark Minenberg. I live at 437 Marcy, which is the Victorian that's at the bottom of the screen. It's interesting. I think what you're hearing expressed, particularly from Sally, is not anger and not a sense that this house, that there shouldn't be a house here. What we're feeling is grief, that the historic nature of the district will no longer be intact when this house is built. That's what we're feeling. We are invested deeply in the historic district and its integrity. And we feel that, I mean, we know that Tracy is capable of great architecture, right? We've all been studying now. None of us are architects. We've watched the work. We've watched the commission. Not that long ago, I think it's 93 Pleasant, Tracy was able to come up with a design that satisfied everyone. She does stellar work. Our concern is that this is not the best work out of this team. Some of us are willing, this is really going on a limb, some of us are willing to contribute towards the architectural cost in order to help come up with a design that will truly enhance the character of this neighborhood and not, in our view, change it for the next century. We will all look at this building. Everyone who will come to this neighborhood will look at this building, not the ones that are truly historic, and that will define the neighborhood. It's in a sense the meeting house, right? It's where the church would go in the center of the green. So, excuse me, I'm a little grieving too, actually, and I haven't even lived in the district that long. For Sally, who grew up here, it's very difficult for us. A design that was, and I heard one of the commissioners say, we don't want to build a house that will be viewed by others as if it's historic, but it's really a fake. And yet there's something between that, right? There can be a revival of a traditional style that no one will have to say it's a fake, it's not really historic, but that will be so in keeping with the sensibility that we have of what the historic district is, that we can all honor it, right? We can all come to view it as something that's really beautiful. And I'm just afraid that for those of us who look at this, right, we live right here. These are our homes, right? We're not walking through. I'm not just walking through casually, right? I spend my life here. Sally and Bruce spend their life in this house from 1710,
You need
right?
the microphone.
It's all right. But I'm trying to express what grief feels like,
Yeah.
right? It's real for us. And we've devoted our lives to this. And we look to the Historic Commission as the keeper of this tradition, right? Above all, you have the power to do this. And we're willing to contribute financially. We're willing to contribute as neighbors. We want only the best for the Sanders, and we want the best for the neighborhood. And if Tracy could put her best work forward, which I've seen at 93, I mean, just to watch what she's able to do, to go to that level of designing something that will really honor any of the historic traditions. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a colonial revival. It could be anything that meets the program that the Sanders need. But please draw something and approve something that enhances the character of the neighborhood. None of us want it, because it's subjective, none of us want to say, what it is that bothers us about it, because immediately you would say it's just our bias. What we're trying to say is, that's why we keep talking about massing, because when you look at historic designs that have had to address massing in urban areas in the past, and this is why I'm kind of pointing to Tracy's abilities here, that they've dealt with massing problems. even our house, which is, even this, the one we keep pointing to, that 437 Marcy, that Queen Anne, it is built in a way that everyone feels is graceful and that is set back in ways that doesn't disturb any of the neighbors. And that's really what we're looking for, is to design something with that historical grace of any period. We don't care. That has addressed massing, the sense of something that looms over us, dominates the landscape, and yet is really not historic at all. I'll yield, and I'm sorry I talk so much, but we're sincere about this, folks. We're not the enemy.
Understand your sincerity.
Yeah, we look to you, and
I
we
used to live there.
Okay, so then you
Okay.
get it. And we're powerless,
Right.
which is the other feeling. We will live with this.
Well, you're not powerless because you've gotten your comments out.
Yes.
That's a good
But
thing.
if they're not heard and responded to, then we have no recourse. Either we live with it and grieve every day, or we have to sell. And none of us really want to do that. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us, sir?
What do you want?
I'd like to make comment when the public is done.
Okay, anyone else in the public?
The public
Or
yields.
get a comment in?
So what I'm hearing is that the tension between a modern building on a big lot in an area surrounded by old houses, small lots, delicate profiles, yet we don't want to create a fake house, a fake historic house on this space. So how do we reconcile that? Can you find the big Dutch colonial house that's to the left? There's a really big one with the sloping roof.
on
You know that
Salter?
one? Yeah.
The Gambrel.
Yeah.
I
Gambrel.
don't know
Thank
if
you.
it's in the model. But
Okay.
that's-
So-
whoa, it's upside down.
Yeah.
On the upside down.
So the Gambrel that I'm thinking of, Tracy, you know the house I'm thinking of.
The Captain Salter.
It's
It is.
Titus
it's a
Salter.
big house.
Oh, it's big.
It doesn't
11,000 square feet.
To my non-architectural, non-trained architectural eye, it's because the house has relatively simple lines. There's not a lot of gables. There's not a lot of porches. There's not a lot of this and that. The lines are very simple and very straight. And I don't know if your design, Tracy, which has this garage sitting out this way and a curve this way and a thing over there, is created by the buildable, the shape of the buildable land. But I think what the people are expressing, the neighbors are expressing, is this very complex, non-traditional form, shape, size of what's being proposed with the shapes, the forms that exist in the area. And if there were some way to take the form, a different form that meets the massing needs of the Sanders house, their personal needs, it would make the house look simpler and therefore less massive. I mean, I'm just trying to create a solution that might reconcile these.
I get you. All righty.
John, could I?
Make it quick, please. We've spent a lot of time on this one now. Go ahead, Martin.
I'm just.
Go ahead, Martin.
Okay. I agree. There's too much contemporary, too much massing. To me, it was Groundhog Day. We're back to the same project, and it's only been dialed back slightly. The materials are too different from what's there. Solar panels, I won't support. So that in brief, I can't support it because we're making little baby steps in retreat from some of the issues that are problematic with this project. So, go ahead, John.
Okay. I guess that's it. Oh, excuse me.
I'll just say, I grew up in this neighborhood as well. My parents still live over there. My father actually grew up in this neighborhood. This actually is where I used to play wiffle ball. If you hit the trees, it was a home run. But I also, it's sensitive of, in 200 years from now, are we going to celebrate this building and be like, oh, this was built 200 years ago. These other buildings around it were built 400 years ago. And you don't want to lie. I don't want to not know what year this building was built. Then again, there's also, you want it to fit into the fabric, the historic fabric, which I understand. You don't want it to be a sore thumb. You don't want it to completely not fit. But that's I think that's the hard balance here is that we're trying to find.
Okay.
I'm going to add one last comment. I live on a little lane, Pickering Street, and one of the defects of the historic district is what do you do with a non-historic house that lands there? And there's one on the corner of our house, built in the 1930s or 40s, that they've solar paneled. It doesn't change our houses. It doesn't change our historic. When people walk down our street, we call it the Swedish Embassy. They pass the Swedish Embassy and they see all the history that's there. But, you know, when you have that empty lot, or you have that non-conforming house, you can't keep it out. It's a tough one.
So if I may, well, I'm sorry, but I feel we need just a quick opportunity to respond. I live in the neighborhood very well, and twice the abutters have mentioned and referred to this space as their village green. This is what they're grieving. They're losing open space, and anybody would feel the same way. We have broken down the mass and lowered the height of the building, so it is average with the whole neighborhood. It is not bigger, it is not smaller, it is average. It is drawing from references of the shingle Queen Anne style. It is not drawing from the federal style, so that would be a completely different design motif. I understand it's a change.
All righty, so I'm going to close this hearing. Everyone has had a chance to speak. And,
We would like to come back for a public hearing.
yeah, you want to
Thank
come
you.
back for a public hearing?
We do.
Then I guess we're done here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, is everybody set for another one, or?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm going. I'm a-going.
Can we take a break after this one?
We'll take a break after this one.
Okay.
Work session, old business D, requested by Mill Pond View LLC, owner for property located at 179 Pleasant Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure, minor demolition, new construction, restoration, and renovation of the accessory structures in the annex of the main home, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property shown on Assessor Map 108 is Lot 15, lies within Mixed Research Office and Historic District. Back again.
I am.
Yeah.
Give you a package. We're back to back.
It's fine.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This isn't good. Kind of like your old house on Union Street.
We need to read it out.
You did?
It did.
Did you?
You did,
Yep.
yep.
Well, then go.
Should we wait for Mr. Cracknell?
Where'd he go?
He's out calming everyone down.
No, just go.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. You can start.
Okay, I can introduce myself. Carla Goodnight from CJ Architects, here with Jake Weeder, also from CJ, and David Calkins, representing the owner. We're here tonight to look at potential massing and historic precedent for building style for the 179 Pleasant Street. One of the things I'd like to start off with is the views of the site, especially behind the connector building, behind the carriage house, in the backyard. And I'm just going to sort of.
I mean, we've seen all this contact stuff.
Right, but we've added pictures from the surrounding properties, and really the visibility of the back lot is almost non-existent. So what we're trying to do is take most of the owner's wish list and put it back in that area so that we can preserve the carriage house, and the connector piece we found has been largely comprised of reclaimed, recut, repositioned lumber. So there's not a lot left there, but the carriage house is in fairly good condition. It does have a lot of original aspects, members on the interior. So Dave,
The second floor is apparently.
this flooring was removed, which was disastrous, but we're trying to restore all
Hold it
of
up
that.
and rebuild the first floor.
So Dave can tell you quickly his plan for the carriage house, not unlike the captain's house, getting it all back up and running, so.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd make the statement that it's in good condition per se, but
Dave is also the contractor, I might also add.
Yeah, I can run back through the dates if the commission so chooses, but basically, the carriage house still has 1784 structure, which is the top half of the carriage house, the floor system and the roof. Same joinery, same size members, lettered, et cetera, et cetera. There are parts, just like the rest of the property, that have been cut, have been repurposed, trusses have been made, but 85% of that structure is still there. Anything below the floor system is gone. It's completely gone, has been gone since about the 1960s. So the intent is to, as I think I described it, top hat the carriage house. We would cut just below the floor system, lift that off, and save that. There would take some temporary shoring, but lift it off with a crane, save it. At that point, that's the only way to access the footing, the foundation for it. The side, if we're looking at the carriage house, the right-hand side, the original wall system is bearing grade, and they put a one-sided wall on the inside of it. So the structure below the floor system is a total disaster in the carriage house, but there's no real original anything inside there. So we recognize the importance and the significance of the top of that, and we intend to save that. Now, moving from the carriage house back towards the annex, the connecting structures, as I stated in our last work session, we believe we've dated most of that to 1903 when Mark Wentworth passed it on to his daughter Susan, who had it until 1940. Some original members in there that have been repurposed, but it's a hodgepodge, not unlike what you've seen at the property. So what we're prepared to show you tonight is some massing studies and some designs that we worked with the clients
Right.
that we're looking to use in that space.
So, right, so if we move on to page 1.1, you can see that basically Jake was kind enough to go skulking around every area of there and was able to determine that the visibility is extremely low in all of those areas. And then we had touched on this last time. The owners would really like to add this level of expansion on that second, like an extra half story on the connector piece. And I think that the question here is that given that it is historically appropriate, we can see it everywhere in Portsmouth that not everywhere, but we see a significant number of examples that this is an appropriate treatment. Is it appropriate? I believe it is appropriate on this site because it is a similar time period and so forth. And I believe that the piece that is there now is there's almost nothing that is left of that original massing or volume. And in contrast to the carriage house and the mansion house, which are, viable, savable original objects that we are very carefully doing that, saving.
We get what you're
Right.
saying.
We want to put this on. So.
And we
All right.
and we heard that at the last meeting, the arches may or may not be appropriate, so we've.
Right. So what we'd like to do is take a quick look at, well, you can see the styles have been documented. So looking at 3.0, we just have a look at what is there now and a look at previously approved just for record. And when you look at 3.1, you can see that we can skip to 3.1. 3.1, we have a proposed option we have several we have two things going on here. The carriage house, we're proposing an addition off the back of the carriage house with a pitched roof or a flat roof that is more dormer style, because I didn't know what would be, I wanted to have a discussion with you about whether the shed/flat roof would be more appropriate or more pleasing than the pitched form. And then the other piece is, we had talked about having the front of the connector, the horizontal, the longer piece, come up straight and then go back, or should it just be set back more like some of these photos? So we have a couple of options, bringing it up to the front or setting it back, and shedding off the back. So that's what we're looking at, so.
Is that, when I kept going back and forth between A and B and option, and the only thing I could see is that the fact that you have it set back the second floor.
Right.
From the front view I'm talking about. I'm not talking about
Right.
the back view. I don't know what the differences are back there.
Right, it's either all the way up or set back. In that area, and I think what may be a little bit sort of confusing is that in the arrow number 3, we're showing the same option in the first A series and the different option in the B series.
So can we go to 4.0 and go through
Yes.
all these very nice pictures I have?
Oh, thank you.
And get the commission's opinion of.
Right, so 4.0 clearly shows the setback. This is the only view you would see, really. So that shows the setback roof, or the setback half story. And then I believe you can see just a hint around the side of a little bit of a pitched roof on 4.0. And 4.1, we're bringing it all the way front, so you don't have that extra massing cut, but that is also a traditional style that, we would be willing to look at. And at this point, we're still showing something more in keeping with the original doors, because that seemed to be, working with the whole concept.
What are you talking about?
The big square doors on the front of that. There's big rectilinear.
Connector building?
Yes, the
So they are
rectangle.
going to be, are they fake doors?
No.
Yes, no.
The one on the right is possibly going to be, the one in the center is not.
But they're not going to be used as garages.
The garage is on the carriage
Yeah,
house.
I see
Right,
that.
right. Those would just be indoor-outdoor spaces, potentially. We're still getting the volume together so that we can then finalize the plan, so.
Yeah, I understand.
And 4.2, again, just shows there's no real difference in a flat roof on the back as far as, that goes. And 4.3, so there's just no.
So there's no difference.
No.
You can see.
And then if you go to 4.4, you can see we're tipping up, more of an aerial view, which is, you can't see from anywhere, but you get an idea of, the carriage house restored and the roof coming off the back, being more of a pitched form off the back of the carriage house. And you can see a slight hint of the great room that is proposed to be coming off of the backside of the horizontal piece. And, sorry about that. And 4.5, also the aerial view, showing it pushed forward. I mean, the changes are so subtle that it's kind of, but it is a significant change. And then in 4.6, we have just sort of gone with a more flat roof on the back side, and again, pulling it forward with a flat roof. And then coming around 4.8, We're looking at a proposed great room on, extending out into the backyard, which this is the first time you can even see any of this, is turning this page. And this gives you a better view of the pitched option for the carriage house extension. And the centered half-story over the connector piece. And then 4.9, again, pushes that volume forward. Very slight change. 410 shows you the flat roof. And 411 shows you the flat roof with it pushed forward, which is all very, very minor changes. Also in some height.
What do you prefer? What's
What would you prefer?
I was going to say, may I speak to that?
Yes, let's hear from the client.
Truthfully, 4.8, I think, is a really, it's hard. I'm not the architect, obviously, but it's hard separating these roofs, and we understand the importance of keeping certain structures subordinate to the other ones. The carriage house is the anchor on this side of the property. The connecting building, as it stands now, is I'm just going to say it, low and useless, and so being able to bring that up.
We understand.
Being able to bring that up, but still maintain sort of that subservient lineage as it steps down and then steps down into what is now the dog trot connector. We still keep that low, and then it steps back up to the annex. So the short answer is, I'm not a huge fan of the big flat roof on the back of the carriage house. I think some pitch there is healthy for the property overall. I think 4.8 does a really nice job of keeping the roof lines clean and subservient. I'm also a big fan of, let me just get to the right one, I think it's 4. Well, for 4.4, I don't know if it's the right back one, but I like the step back there. Again, I think it helps keep the structure defined. And in all honesty, we know that the carriage house is the same vintage as the mansion. The kitchen L was removed, which was original, so now we're discussing the annex, which we dated 1860, somewhere on there. We're discussing these connecting structures that weren't 1784, so we're trying to walk that balance of what's appropriate and also what is useful.
No, I think we need to have, all right, Margot, you might as well start.
I agree, 4.8. Down,
It sounds like
stop right
one,
there.
option 1A is what you're going for, and I think I agree. I agree too. I think it's important for that connector piece to keep the idea that it had a lower roof line, and so putting something on top of it that's set back and is a little bit smaller keeps that that massing, that visual, that it's got that sort of lower first eve line there.
All right,
The hip roof was good. I prefer that over the flat roof.
okay.
I agree with both those comments. I think the 1A shows it's subservient, it doesn't have this big wall that the B has more of. And I know that back roof, no one will see perhaps, except for the neighbors, the abutters, but I do agree with you that the hip roof is better.
And I agree also with those comments.
Okay. I have this is not our purview, but is this landscape just so that we can clearly see the building, or are you planning to denude the property and take all the trees down?
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, the trees, if I put the trees in, we wouldn't see anything.
Okay,
There's a gorgeous big
you
tree
took them
there.
out so we could just see them.
Right,
Thank
right.
you. I just was imagining this on Pleasant Street and thinking,
No, there will be extensive landscaping, but
the trees will be in.
the trees will remain. There's two trees. There's a giant tree in the front. There's a historically significant tree on the Langdon side that will stay.
Okay, enough, just wanted to be sure.
We don't have any pictures of it, but can you talk about this great room?
It is on it's on 4.9.
No.
The great, yeah, with the arches, with the arch
I
window.
see it.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
It's just hard to make out what the roof shape, or what it is, what's on the back of it.
Right.
You don't have that, right?
Not ready for it yet.
The massing shows it a little bit if you're curious about roofing angles. Let's see,
It's
what
a
is
little
it?
clearer on massing.
3.1 and 1A, option 1A, does
Yep.
a fairly decent job of expressing what those roof lines would look like. And truthfully, 1B keeps the symmetry on the front that I think we all just said is important. So 1A, 1B could be discussed.
Wow.
Yep, I see what you're saying.
1A.
1A does have that, the dormer on it doesn't go all the way to the end of the building, so it's a little,
It also goes to the back building wall,
Yep,
which is
yes.
why the tie-in is different of the
It
great room.
confuses me even more.
Yeah, how does
Great
that
room.
tie into the,
Well, less whatever, options next time, so it'll be very clear what it is we're looking at instead of different
Well,
rows of several
When we
options.
get to that, we'll get to that.
Okay,
what materials are you looking on the great room? I noticed it was
It's like stone.
some
For
stone.
Exterior, yeah, some stone, but otherwise it'll be wooden clapboard. It's
Stone and clapboard mix.
similar to everything that,
Stone on the bottom, so it's
Yeah, that's-
two-thirds stone, one-third clapboard,
Yep.
yeah,
more or less.
more or
looking at
less,
it.
yeah, as it's.
Those chimneys would be stone as well.
Right? Sorry?
Those chimneys there, is that what those are?
Yes.
Outdoor fireplaces or? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. We're trying to move away, let the house stand. Do something a little different, slightly different language, let the house stand as
Any
the
other
bricks.
comments? Reagan?
Oh, I can support all.
Okay.
I didn't see anything I couldn't support.
Okay.
It'll be quite impressive.
Amazing.
Rocking
Yeah,
it
this is-
forward.
I mean,
The
keep
next
adding on,
meeting.
you know what I mean, and but you've done it in the right way, you've done it in the right manner, where the,
Thank you.
each edition is, you can tell the story.
After you franchise the ferry landing and have 100 of them throughout the country,
Yeah.
you'll have a house.
Right, with build beams like this, the fan.
I'm very pleased.
Oh, good.
Okay, so come back with some more stuff.
All right, we will.
Thank you very much.
Move right along.
It's quite a job.
So we'll be back in 1 minute here.
Makes me tired thinking about it.
Wow. I am tired. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nate. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
You want them, you're coming back, or what are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
Coming right back. Work session.
No, this.
On this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. so
I move that we continue this work session to next month.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Did we actually have a break? Sorry.
Are you taking a break?
sorry.
Oh, fine. That's not a problem.
Grab a hunk of my cookie. All righty, we're back from our little break, and we are now old business E, work session requested by 8th KPH LLC owner for property located at 161 Deer Street, wherein permission is requested to allow the demolition of the existing structure and the new construction of a new mixed-use buildings as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 125 as Lot 17-3, lies within Character District 5 and the Historic Districts. Welcome again.
Yes. Carla Goodnight, CJ Architects, Jake Leader, and Tom Ballin, owner and developer. We've actually done quite a bit of work on this since our last meeting.
Good.
The previous approval had a ramp for accessing the first floor in order to pull the parking out of the wetlands or out of the water table. And Tom has actually got some experience in coastal resiliency and in another life, so he's been doing a lot of research and working on that, and prepared a presentation that the planning board was very, very interested in. So we appended it to this presentation as well, just to see, just to give you a look at what they
Append
saw.
away.
Yes, that's why I put it in the appendix. If you're interested, we can absolutely give you
I still have my appendix, and I would like to.
Perfect. And so through all these studies and evaluations and moving the parking around and back and forth, we were able to eliminate some of the tandem parking and drop a storefront area to the sidewalk and omit the ramp. So, and that was just replanning the parking layout and so forth. I think that has been a huge victory for everyone, to be able to have a street level entry, even though it did cost half a row of parking spaces. It's still, I think, a good solution. And so we did look at this massing very briefly at the last meeting, so I'll just sort of skip through that as how we carved away at the volume on 2.0. Now that we're rampless and carving away more on 2.1. The thing to note is that we have an actual penthouse on the top floor, which brings the building height down quite a bit. So we have a top floor penthouse set way back, satisfying the requirements for a penthouse. And then 2.2, you can see the previously approved and the current massing strategy. Now, moving on to 2.3, if we take that massing strategy another step, you start to see the volumes that are proposed for a corner element and for balcony elements and for storefront as banks of windows, and just the volume, how it fits in with a lot of the other neighboring volumes, including the proposed project across the street and Port Walk and the current buildings, all either approved or proposed in that area. So I think the massing is appropriate for the surrounding buildings on 2.3. 2.4.
Well shown, too.
On 2.4, we start to get a little bit of a shadowy look of some type of style that we might pursue, and a setback of the penthouse. And we're looking at a mix of large windows, more of an industrial expression, but with the larger recessed balcony areas and some fairly large glazed openings as well, as far as the massing goes. But a very simple form, very industrial form. I think industrial in a railway sense is what we're looking for here. And of course, this is all very, very preliminary. And then 2.5, the view from Vaughan Street, We're looking to introduce some recessed arches and maintain an arched language of some sort as we begin to develop the project. And that's where we are with massing at this point, is the 4 stories and the penthouse.
You've given us something. Anyone? On the right?
Got someone on the left there.
So we're
We have
looking
someone
at
on the
a
left.
simple industrial massing as a thing we need
Got
comments
insomnia?
on.
I think you guys have done a great job of showing the massing compared to the surrounding properties. Shows it on Maplewood, shows it on Tier Street. I do like that we're looking at going towards that industrial look, since it is already on the train track, and it, honors that history. And honestly, right now, with the buildings there, I know that there's no view that's being taken away. You know what I mean? You already can't see the water, you can't see the cemetery from there. But yeah, those are the comments right now.
Okay.
I think this is great. I love the mass. I love the industrial element you have, but each one of the elements is graceful and strong at the same time. They really say something. The arches with the keystones, I really like this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do too. I like the rectangular with the arches. I'm glad you got rid of the ramp, that you were able to do that, and even you sacrificed some parking. I think it fits the space really well.
Oh, thank you.
Righty.
Say I'm very comfortable with the massing. I appreciate that from the previously approved design, you could bring the height down a bit, so that it's more in, it's going to be very comparable to all the buildings, all the other buildings on the corner. And so, I mean, I'm fully supportive of the direction.
Oh, good.
Martin?
Are we still just talking mass?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine. I'd like to see a little, some stepping or something, maybe some prominence at the corner. But for now, it's a good start.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No problems with the massing. Fits.
Yeah, I don't have any problems either. So, and I'm not sure how your arches all work into this railroad language that you're trying to use, but I like the arches.
Right.
I would
Tom
prefer
also likes
kind
the
of
arches, so.
a classic look sometime on some building, but
Good. Good. All right.
it's good though.
It's fine.
Else?
I'm basically just here to gladly
Simple.
hear good things about massing and ready to come back and
Now you can hit, now you
dive
can
into
hit
the
the
building.
road.
Yep.
Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this building? Nope. Couldn't let it get away.
Sorry, I was so excited today. Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. I am so excited today because the public came. That's all I have to say about that. I like the arches too. I'm getting on the bandwagon with you guys. The only thing that I'm concerned about is that the other buildings on that corner drop down to 3 stories. I'm pretty sure all 3 of them do. Just trying to remember. I haven't been down there in a little while. And originally, when it was talked about to have kind of a railway station type feel. So I like, can you go back to the picture right before that you just had up? Are you in control of it, Nick? There it is there. So you see how you made those windows kind of interesting, which gives it kind of a more modern, like a larger railroad station. The railroad station that was there was smaller, and originally when you had spoken about this, you talked about bringing some of those elements from the railway station into that, and I just thought I'd remind you of that, to keep that in mind, that was one of the things. It's big, but the north end has lots of big buildings. You're coming close into the neighborhood that I'm highly protective of, but it seems big, but I think as you come into the concept of adding railroad things, you might change that shape a little bit to a little, I mean, you might or you might not, I never know, but that's just my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
So I guess that we are reached a point where we need to have a motion to come back with another work session.
Yes.
Very good.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Thanks,
Thank you. Remind everybody that we had all the railroad stuff in the world on the previous building that we approved here, because we had exposed iron beams on the outside of it. All right. We got, it was like, a steampunk building. So moving right along, work session requested by 43 Holmes Court LLC owner for property located at 43 Holmes Court, wherein permission is requested to allow the demolition of the existing home and the new construction of a single-family home of a similar design. Planning Department. Somehow or another gotten lost here. As per plans on file in the Planning Department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 101 as Lot 14 lies within the waterfront business and historic districts. And who is presenting this?
Brendan McNamara, the designer of the project, and Steve Singler. So, second work session. In the interim, have since there's a revised set of plans which is more in keeping with the current Gothic dormers that are there. I should one thing I explain about that is that the Gothic dormers are there, but there's a shed dormer that is joining between them, which is made necessary because I'm trying to keep the house as small as possible. So the pitching point for the rafters at the second floor level at the extreme outer edges is at 5 feet. So, and to travel through the house on the southern side, I need a shed dormer to get the headroom to come through on that side. So that's the only sort of generalised difference to what's there now, other than, as explained, it's bigger. By going from the existing gable that's 14 feet wide, this one's 18 feet wide, and so and as the result of that creates the larger volume to allow us to have the code approvable interior spaces. So I think it was it really comes down to, can we demolish the existing house, which was then led to the site visit. You guys, some of you came to see it. It's in better shape than you would think it should be because of the dampness that exists in the basement. It's actually kind of shocking, given how it feels, how well it's held up. But it's still, and we believe, it appears to be the case, that the first floor system that we're looking at could well be to that 1749 date. But it is also of that construction style. So the beams are shallow and they're...
How did we get 1749?
I've got no idea.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
Does anyone?
No.
It was just given to us when we started. on the
Without
property.
David Adams here, we just
Probably
don't.
in the survey.
Yeah.
I looked up on the maps and I
I
couldn't
mean,
really...
that Portsmouth Advocates survey is sometimes useful and sometimes not useful.
You mean the one from 1980?
Yeah.
84, that's where that would come from.
But I will say, with somebody with limited knowledge, that certainly the basement beams, et cetera, are definitely old. And there were some round ones, no bark on them. But the structure in the basement was old when you got upstairs, and the staircase was Victorian in style, but very steep. And there is no details left at all. All the windows are 1x4 flat casings, they were all done over probably 80, 90 years ago, something like that. So that's my report.
Looks more like that.
So it's still, we do have, we got the initial survey stuff, we haven't got the detail, but can you just give us the elevation? And it's an annoying minimum 1 foot lift.
That you have to go up.
Yes.
Well, that's
Still a
not
lift.
annoying.
No.
I can't
Well,
imagine being up 6 feet high or something, a little house like
The
that.
annoying thing is the lift itself. You know, it's a Rubicon that you've crossed that incurs an expense that's
I'm sorry, I'm not following. Explain to me what the.
Sorry,
1 foot
this
lift
is
there. I
floodplain
wasn't
issue.
there.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's gotta go
So,
up
so
once.
the, it's, the house is encompassed by, AE, 8 flood zone, which leads to, design flood elevation or base flood elevation of 11 being the lowest point that, non-flood resistant materials of any kind can occur. So therefore,
So you're saying the first floor level?
yes,
needs
this,
to be
any
1 foot higher.
structure, so, or any beam that supports the first floor level has to be above that point.
Okay.
And also, any mechanical requirement that's in there needs to be above that point as well. And it could be, you know, you could sort of say, yeah, okay, well, we could put any mechanical equipment in another location, but any sort of under duct work or anything like that has to be above that level. So essentially, the top of the foundation is essentially a foot too low. The foundation itself has been, as we saw, it has different components. It's the original stone foundation for whatever reason.
It's not bad.
Sorry? Well, they've got 2 zones, you know, where they've done that single-sided pour against the stone foundation in the area that has the greatest headroom, and then as you move towards Marcy Street, the ledge comes up, and they've kind of like abandoned that, and they didn't do anything with that, so you've just seen the raw backside of the stones.
So having driven down the street in my little teeny Kia and had to do a double K turnaround to get out of that street, I'm noticing that there are indeed 4 houses on that street,
Yes.
and it's a dead end. I'm just wondering, is this going to work?
Well, fortunately.
Is it-
You mean for
is-
construction?
I mean the construction.
Oh, okay. Well, again, fortunately, the same issue. So the Singlars have bought 39 as well.
Oh,
So they have, so.
Which house is that?
That's the greenhouse immediately, the next one up.
Yep.
That one. So it has the car parking space. It's a weird street. I mean, Holmes Court cuts all those properties in half, and particularly 39. You know, as you come down with your car,
Yeah.
39 house is on the left-hand side, 39's parking spaces on the right-hand side.
Oh, yeah.
So it goes through. It's, you know, so the intention is because the expansion of the new house does bring, so the face that's on the water side is staying the same. The face that's on the right-hand side is staying the same location, but the house is coming towards Marcy Street by an extra 2 feet. As you said, it's, you know, which is putting pressure on that parking space. Although where it comes to, currently there's like a pressure-treated sort of raised bed just there, so it really kind of comes to that situation. But the intention would be that we would do an easement that would give parking for 43 on 39's opposite spaces, you know, so, because I think they have like, you know, 3 or possibly 4 spaces there. So there would easement for the parking to relieve the parking issue at 43 and lay it on to 39. Although it still is going to be.
Well, I think you're worried about just the construction, right?
I guess that I'm worried about essentially, why are you doing this now? Because the house, we've seen the basement is in good shape, relatively. Yes, it's in the floodplain, but it is. Okay. Does the basement turn into a pool now and then? Do we know that? Does the basement flood?
you don't know that for sure. It's definitely damp. yeah.
It looks like it, could have, it's a very damp feeling, that's for sure.
There's no tide line in there, though.
Yeah.
It's generally damp. There's no kind of like.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see that. I don't know. These are just my comments. Somebody else just jump in on this little house.
So the one that you said you also own, is that the one directly, if you're facing the water, directly behind it to the left?
Yes, you're the green one.
Yes, okay. So that would be the one that you'd be encroaching like I know on one side of the house, we're coming out just a couple feet, right? On the left side of the house facing the water.
Yeah.
So that would be, you own that house that would be taking the water view from,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Well, yes and no, but there's no view at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's, the houses, even the houses there, that house looks straight onto the back of it.
Okay, yeah.
And the only view is down is there you know the tree, we were talking about the tree? Yeah, there's that view passage going down the left-hand side, which that's the area that, if you to say that it's taking view away from that property, it would be on the left-hand side, because it's probably moving 3 feet over there.
Yeah.
And
We
it's
had the
probably,
truck marks.
it's more, and that is more considerate to the fact that it's closing in that space on that side.
Do you know the house?
Yes, well, I didn't get a chance to go in and
Yeah.
see so I'm relying on you, John, for your assessment, and the last we had talked, you're requesting to knock it down. The last we talked, it sounded like that was an acceptable deal, and it sounds like it's still on the table now.
Yes, and the issue is we're back into the situation of being caught in the requirements of the flood zone of that if you do any work on it, the expenditure exceeds the value and then
Right, it's
and then
all coming back.
the whole catch-22 is then so then the whole thing, it's not an issue that the stair is really steep and awkward, it's a stair because the stair is not code compliant, nor is there any actually there wouldn't be a sufficient headroom at the second floor level for it to be considered usable except for the narrow bit in the middle, but you couldn't get to it because you couldn't have a legal stair to get to that habitable point.
The steps are more or less like a 10-foot step ladder leaning against the wall, yeah.
Well, I will say that the proposed design is sensitive to what was there, and, I think it's a wonderful little design, and, it sounds great.
Yeah, I think
Glass on the back was
our,
one of the big.
Go ahead.
our complaint last time was it made sense to get rid of it and build again and build it higher. But let's try to keep at least some of the old elements, and I think you have
Right,
by
so-
doing the 2 years. Yep.
So the new design principally is...
And we shortened the windows too, we
Yeah,
can like
so
that, yep.
principally it was the putting the dormers back on.
Yep.
And then the other aspects were on the water side, that was coming off the enclosed porch, yes, exactly there. So that was a 5-panel folding doors. So brought it back to a 3-panel folding doors, but also introduced the lower, that they weren't a full glass panel, that arranged the panels to align with the side panels. And then also at the second floor level, that was originally, it was French doors with fixed side lights, and that was just a full glass panel. So it went to single French doors, put in the short fractional across the top, and put the windows through the side. So reduce that. It's probably a bad thing for me to do, but doing the blackened windows highlights the amount of glass.
Yes, Karen.
So I appreciate that you want to rebuild it as it stands, almost exactly like that. But are we going down a slippery slope here that we have probably a lot of houses that have these same flood issues in the south end? And are we opening up Pandora's box here to, just because we're in the flood zone, even though the house is perfectly good, we're going to knock it down and rebuild it?
Well, I mean, I think this came up in the last meeting to a degree, and I think what I was suggesting, whether you were here or not, is that I have a hard time believing this is going to be a necessary outcome for the lion's share of the houses in the South End, God forbid, right? So I have the same sentiment you do. I think what's more important in their presentation is to stress less the code, because there's flexibility in the code in interpreting for a historic structure, how much of it needs to come into compliance if you lift it. And because there's uncertainty, you can certainly imagine on that side of the table that it won't be a pleasant experience, so you've got to remove the house because the stairs are out of code, everything's out of code in respect to the new code. But just like other jurisdictions, in Charleston, they're lifting houses now regularly, Norfolk, Virginia,
As they should
for the
be.
same reasons, but they are not trashing the house in order to do it. I think your core argument, rather than that be the lead, is you need this house to do what you want it to do. And you're trying to do this in a really respectful manner. I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but, you've been here before. When David Witham did the one on South Mill Street and essentially put a replica in for the house that was removed there, that's the direction you're headed. And I think that's the honest way to present it. Not that it's dishonest, but I think the flooding issues and the insurance and the code, they are problematic, but I wouldn't overplay them, or we're all finished here, because they'll be tearing everything down.
I would, most of the stuff that I come to you guys with represents a relatively small amount of the work that I actually do. The majority of the work I do is coastal homes, along New Hampshire and southern Maine coast, and sadly do run against the flood issue a number of times, and it can be very draconian. And it does depend. The issue that really comes up is that there's a federal law, but it's actually administered by the local building official. So it really comes down to the local building official. As an example, I've done a lot of stuff in Rye, and the local building official is very draconian as to how he chooses to apply the federal law.
I'm confident that's not going to happen here, and I'm also confident that many of the jurisdictions or locations you're working are not in historic districts. And that's a big difference in terms of the interpretation of the code.
And we have Nick here. too.
Well, forget Nick. Yeah.
Going back to the other, so at the moment, so Steve's parents are in there, and who are elderly, all of us. Steve's obviously not as elderly as his father, but it's in his future. So any development on the house, sorry, but we have to accept it, is at the moment, so they can't go up the stairs. So they've created their bedroom in what's essentially the living room of the house, which, it'll be okay for summer, but Steve has longer term durability, interests in the house.
I guess if the lawn hadn't been so good, that I could see, the machines down there digging new foundations and things, but with that lawn, I just go,
Sod farm.
So, Brendan, and when we walked through the front room, which as you said is being used as a bedroom,
yes,
opened directly onto this porch. It was basically, there isn't a porch as a separate porch.
They joined
they knocked the wall down and it was subsumed into the room.
Yes.
Is this a porch, or is this an extension of that front room, the way you have this designed?
I'm not too sure about this, how to describe it. On the appearance on the outside, it is an enclosed porch, but it's fully integrated into the house.
Okay.
So from an interior point of view, you wouldn't be aware that it's a porch, because the ceiling would run out to the row of windows. So internally, it's fully incorporated, but from externally, it's been delineated by the roof because it's only a single
Looks like
story.
a converted porch.
Yeah.
So if I were to see a floor plan of this, that one room
Yes.
would go all the way out to the exterior glass framing
Yep.
of that porch.
Yep.
Because there are two things that bother me about this house. You're doing everything you can to replicate it and keep it in similar to the style that's there right now.
Yes.
But the loss of that open porch on the side to me, makes a really big change in the style of this house. And just as the glazing, I think, bothered some other people, it really changed this from sort of delicate cottage feel to farmer, enclosed farmer porch thing. And so I'm pushing back a little bit on that, because I think that this, in some ways, the success of this project is going to inform a lot of other buildings right along the waterfront. And if we allow for large changes in style when you're really just trying to save the existing house in the best way you can, we're walking a very fine line between saving the existing structure. If you can't lift it up to save it, you rebuild it to save it.
Right.
And making modifications, to what point are you modifying it too much, I guess is what I'm saying.
Anybody else?
Well, I'll just say that I'm sorry that I couldn't be there in person, and I didn't get to see the old
Basement.
It's anything that recognized in the 1700s.
Right, so it's hard to let go of a building that is supposedly so old, but it does make me feel better if John says that there aren't any details left
Nothing.
to really show for it. So, and I just wanted to state that I'm usually the one who says no fake old buildings, it needs to be representative of our time. However, in this situation where you're rebuilding something that already exists, I think that what you have here is totally acceptable. If you were building on a new empty lot, I would say no. But to rebuild something, this is the right approach to really modify what is there. You're basically taking the essence of what is there now, but improving it and making it to code and all these things. So I'm just stating that I don't have a problem with this. I think I agree. I think Margot's comments are well taken, though, and there is something about a porch in this location that is part of its character. So.
Well, I hate to say this, but I disagree completely. We have allowed porches to be enclosed on Marcy Street. They're enclosed on Newcastle Avenue going out. This house, I didn't really even know that this street was there. And I've lived in, this is not even Prey Street, and this is, this isn't Pickering Street. This street is so tiny. So this house is at the end, and it sits looking over the water. So your program is to have a nice room with windows looking out on that beautiful view. And I find it fully acceptable. And you've made every effort to make this porch, make it look like a porch. And anything else that you can do to make this look like a porch, either windowsills, maybe you can, continue windowsill around it, and that sort of thing certainly helps. But like I said, we have approved these before on old houses, and this is a new house. You're trying to replicate the look, and I appreciate it. So that's where I'm going to sit on this. Okay, did you want to say one more?
Well, just quick, yeah, it wasn't for the lack of sort of wanting to do something, different or unique. Yes, since it is torn down, but it's just the essence of the house that's there just kind of makes sense, like given the situation. And there's, at the last meeting, the neighbours that live down the street were really concerned about, the impeding on their view, but in actual fact it won't, because it's, the way it's impeding on the view is on the 39 house more than anything else. So it's kind of like, which I think is a good thing, when a historic old house actually kind of makes sense in its location. And certainly understand the thing with the porch, but that was, in the effort, that's why there's just so much glass there, is to try and make it as see-through as we possibly can do it from the interior point of view, but also from the exterior point of view.
Okay, oh, anybody in the public? Would like to make a comment?
No,
Is
no way.
Anybody online?
It wasn't a minute ago.
So, and
No.
just, so our reason for being here is to feel if we can move ahead with the other aspects of the approval process. So if we feel that
Okay.
the demolition is acceptable to the board, then we will just, I don't know whether we continue or whatever we do it, but we then go back now and be working with the civil engineers to do the Board of Adjustment application and get that process through, and then come back with that in hand to then.
I understand, that's good, a good way to do it. So you've got our opinion, and
Okay.
good luck.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you.
Continue this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know, what's the-
do you want to come back, or are you?
Oh, no.
Well, you're going to do a public hearing when you come back.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so you don't,
Yeah.
we're done.
And also, we will, the assumption is that it's the exterior material package that we'd be very happy with.
No vinyl.
No composite, no vinyl, just all
They
wood.
sneak that in vinyl window.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so we'll.
No, because they're not coming back.
Maybe Nick can decide how best to, whether it's continued or we just do another.
You're not,
Do another application anyways.
you have to do a new
Yeah,
application.
yeah.
You're done. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're not done, but you're done.
Done for that.
Okay. All right. Have a good night. Good night. Work sessions, new business, requested by Coventry Realty LLC, owner for property located at 111 State Street, wherein permission is requested to allow renovations to an existing structure, replace the doors and windows, and new construction to an existing structure, construct rear addition, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 107 as Lot 50, lies within Character District 4, Historic Districts.
Hello again,
Welcome.
Tracy Kuzak, Arc of Architects with McNabb Properties. We are here for an addition to the back of this building. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's actually 3 buildings.
That's Dick's TV.
4 buildings. Most recently, Mr. Kim's on the corner, Agave, next to it, soon to be Soul. It's all going to function as one building, and we're here for practical reasons to add an elevator and fire exit stair, which was a condition of occupancy from the building inspections department. The building has been deemed uninhabitable on 2 of the 3 floors until we build this stair. So that's what we'd like
Is
to do.
it uninhabitable because of the staircases?
Because of the egress, yes.
Yeah, and there's no other egress.
No, the current egress was 9-inch riser heights, 9-inch trans, 30 inches wide.
Oh, boy.
The 107 side where Mr. Kim's was, I'm surprised it hadn't fallen in inside. It was, the floors were 2x4s, 2x6s. It's the worst structure I'd seen in my career inside once we deskinned it. And then we had the chief building inspector in, and as we did the renovations going from Agave, which failed in COVID.
Yeah.
And so I just took it back over to my restaurant group, and we're rebranding it Soul. They then stopped allowing, which had been there for half a century, the grandfathered uses of the basement, which was support space for the restaurant, but that required 2 ways out, and we didn't have 2 ways out. And they also, on the 3rd floor, which was an office for the restaurant, same thing there. You need 2 ways out, and we don't have them. So this came all crashing in, and it was a negotiation, and we said we can cure it all if we put an addition out back, put a brand-new stair tower that goes all the way from the basement, all the way to the roof. Of course, we'll make it handicap accessible at the same time, because the buildings combined, really, we have to. We're more than 2,500 square feet of floor, hence we're here. So it's only about a 300 square foot addition on a floor plate, but it's extremely critical for the function of these buildings.
Yes.
Context? The addition fronts Sheaf Street.
Context.
And currently, there's a odd assembly of falling apart wooden decks and wooden stairs and mishmash dumpster So we'd like to propose to remove the wooden deck, railing, stair, and infill that gap between the two gables, between the blue and the yellow gables.
Is this Sheaf Street?
Sheaf Street.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yep. That's pretty much it.
That would be the back entrance to the old red door, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, the pressure-treated deck that you could get in
Yep.
from the red to the red door, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, as you know, code doesn't allow
Didn't- I thought I
exterior.
said,
Lindsay did.
And then it was Mr. Kim's second floor sitting after the red door.
yeah, I was in his high school class.
Long history to that spot.
Yeah.
So that's what's there now. We'd like to remove the stair and the deck. And what we propose, fill it in, fire stair.
Wow.
And an elevator, there's a small janitor closet, and basically a corridor to get out. And then the stair has a door that goes to the outside, and we're proposing a small shed roof over that, so the snow doesn't block the door when you push it out to exit. We are proposing 2 new dormers on the Chapel Street side of that back gable structure, and then 1 new dormer on 111. There's currently 3, and it looks like there should be 4. There is a chimney kind of there, which is towards the back, which might be why they didn't do it, but the next plan you'll see how we
Where's the chimney?
there it is.
Chimney's there. That's why they
Yeah,
didn't
the
do it.
chimney is existing. Sorry, it was not on the previous drawing. And that's the State Street side. We would, the elevator towards the back, there's the new dormer. But also on the lower right, where Mr. Kim's was, we would like to replace, there's a mismatched collection. There's a single door and 2 mismatched windows and some simulated fake stone that's been glued to the front and painted black. We'd like to remove the fake stone.
Reagan, shouldn't we save that?
Historic fake stone. We'd like to expose the original brick that's back there. If it is destroyed because of removing the fake stone, we would repair the brick, but we're not really fond of the fake stone. And then to replace the mismatched door and windows with a pair of nano windows that complement the one that's currently on the left at 111.
Okay, comments,
That
questions?
is the chapel.
Oh, you're not done yet?
Well, so you can see the 2 shed dormers proposed on the roof. That would be residential up there, and that's for the purpose of getting light and air and potential egress from that top floor. And to the far right is the side that goes down Sheaf Street, and that's the stair tower. We're limited to 2 stories with a gable, so to get the head height at the 3rd floor of the stair, we've put a shed dormer there. And that's the Sheaf Street elevation. Yep, that middle part is the middle part's the addition.
Is that recessed back from the existing part of the right?
It is.
Yeah, it looks like the House of 7 Gables or something on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I don't know why they built it that way, but we're not touching that. That's how it is.
You of course remember Jay Smith, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
certainly.
He built that back of the 2 gables on the 111 side. I'm not sure what his reasoning was, but.
So you're turning it into one large restaurant or one?
The restaurant will be the entire street level, correct? So we've
So
already-
Agavi and Mr. Kim will now be one.
We've already broken through at the buildings in the hallway.
Yeah.
We've done a lot merger, so it's no longer 2 buildings, it's 1.
And then the second floors of Agavi will
Will still be
residential?
restaurant.
Oh, that'll still be restaurant too?
Yeah, Agavi
Will that
will-
connect through?
No,
wow.
no, it'll be
Kim's.
apartments on the, instead of where the red door was.
Right.
Which was second floor, Mr. Kim's.
Yep.
That'll be apartment,
Oh, okay.
and then the 3rd floor will be apartment.
I see.
It's just too intensive of a use to have the same amount of restaurant that
Yeah.
the combination of Kim and Agave had, so.
Agave, the one thing I can remember is that was approved with wooden sashes, 6/6 windows up on the second floor, et cetera, and then somebody just came along and took them out and put vinyl windows in. And it was quite a surprise.
When was that?
I don't think there was any fight involved with it, though. I don't think that, I'm not even sure I don't even know if I was on the historic district when this happened. This is way back.
Yeah, it had to have been, because I didn't.
This is
I've
way
owned-
back,
I've owned it 18
20 years
and
ago.
Yeah, it wasn't, we didn't do it.
Yeah. You sure you didn't do it?
I didn't do that. I wouldn't have done vinyl. Trust me. Now, if they were mahogany and they got switched, I couldn't so quickly say I didn't do it.
I'm sure you've got all new windows planned and cetera.
Oh, yeah,
all
absolutely.
this whole-
Oh, absolutely.
This whole thing, it's going to be
Absolutely.
first class.
Absolutely.
Any other comments? Yeah. comments.
On the addition of the dormer on State Street, is that going to impact the chimney at all?
It will not compromise the chimney, but there will be some flashing needed because the dormer won't end.
You know, those are in.
Kind of kidding. Well, I was hoping you might say.
I consider just about anything. but-
Yeah.
No, it's even kind of a new roof, too.
I mean, it's a really interesting roof pattern. I mean,
Yeah.
when I see the elevation from Chapel Street, I think it's really kind of cool with the two dormers, and then the dormer, the cheek wall and the dormer on Sheaf. You got a lot of roof planes there, but the asphalt's kind of weak.
Wood's not the best for that sort of thing either, though.
Yeah.
Why not? You ever been to the governor's mansion?
Yeah, I would be more
Delicious.
inclined with a simulated slate or,
Yeah.
something, than a.
Something with a texture.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
Anyway, I'm not trying to spend your money.
No,
Doing a good job.
Anybody
I do it
on
by-
the
by myself.
commission want to make some comments?
The only negative reaction I had to this at all, because I love how it's very complicated and you've managed to put it all together in a way that seems to work, but the two shed dormers on the little house on Chapel Street, they bother me. I think because of the building they're being put on. I would, and in the surrounding area, shed dormers, they're usually doghouse, not shed. So I'm torn because you have the shed over the elevator area, and that makes complete sense. So in some ways, it makes sense to have a shed around the corner, but it's a completely different building, even though they're attached. So Tracy, could you give me some thoughts on why you chose a shed and why you chose two versus one together?
Well, one in the middle didn't provide enough daylight and egress from the living space, and three seemed like too much. So,
Two is just
and there
right.
are a ton of gables. There are so many gables. It just seemed simpler to do a flat shed, and I think there are some flat shed roofs across the street at that new building that was built behind the Connie Bean. If I'm right.
Yep.
And it's new. It's not historic, but yet they exist and they're across the street. So.
So
that's why.
you didn't think about doing the exact same thing you did with the shed on the right-hand side and take it all the way across, or almost all the way across?
That would be more useful to us, if that's okay.
I'd be interested to see how that looks, just because I think simpler on that roof line would be
Yeah.
better, and having two of them, it makes it more complicated. It's rare that I advocate for a larger shed door.
Yeah, yeah.
Extremely rare.
I would think on such a historic building as that, in such a visible spot, I wouldn't want to see a full, like a big old dormer on that thing, because it just.
Did you see that face?
But I understand where you're going with it.
I could have to see it to,
We can show it both ways.
yeah.
Martin?
Yeah, I'm looking at the elevation or the perspective you have at the corner of Chapel and State, and it looks like you're blending the buildings together to make them all appear uniform, one big building. And to me, I would hope that I know you got to restore the corner, and we're losing an entrance, and I think that's sad that we're losing this entrance in the storefront. We're losing two entrances. It'd be nice if you could keep that distinction between the buildings. That's probably what I would hope for. I think all the other gestures, all the other moves to make this a safer set of buildings are all commendable, and I can support, and I would just hope that we would keep those little distinct, pieces.
Yeah. Good point. I also had that reaction as I looked at it, because you're kind of losing that corner building's identity by taking out the entrance. So I'm wondering, could you keep that central door entrance, which would keep the symmetry of the windows above it and everything?
We'll look at
Maybe never actually use it as an, as just as an egress,
Right.
sort of thing, but it's still there.
Keep it being a separate building. No, I get what you're saying.
I thought that also. That was the first thing I thought when I saw this elevation.
These are clearly different buildings, but one doesn't have a door.
You need a door, right.
Yeah, I think that kind of erases that history, that story. You know what I mean? Where if you keep the two buildings distinguished, we can still see that history, even though we can tell we've adapted it, but it's still there. We're not erasing it.
That could be a good trade-off. We can incorporate and get a door to keep that history, but then we can get rid of the hodgepodgeness that got all cut in over the years.
God,
of storefronts and second doors and.
I'd hate to see even the brick, be fake, so that it would all seem like it was all done at one time. I'd like to see that this was two different.
Right.
Yeah.
Who knows what the bricks are going to look like?
Keep that downspout separates them.
Yeah. Yep. Anyone else? That's it? Anyone
And
in
I'm
the
glad that
public?
the addition on Safe Street is set back from what is existing.
Yeah.
That makes me feel better.
There's no one in the online and no one in the public to speak, so I guess you want to come back?
Well, normally we'd be happy to come back for multiple work sessions, but because of the urgency of the life safety issues, we'd love to come back for a public hearing if we could. Or a work/public hearing, just to.
And if you do something with the door or any of these suggestions, you could
Yes,
easily
yes.
hop into a work session at the beginning and then go right into the hearing. Okay?
That would.
So if you have
Fine.
option A and B or something,
right.
whatever you want to do with the ideas. Yep.
Okay, all right, so
Option A or
So
B.
file for a public hearing.
Okay.
you're all done.
Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We
The
did.
Celtics are winning.
All that done. and it
Does
was
anyone
only
want
10.
to discuss the adjournment?
Second.
Well, this is
Second.
acceptable. Do you feel bad bum rushing me?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Anything to get you going, Mark.
Considering the length of the agenda, I think we did very well.
Just bum rush you.